Hello and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. I'm Jody and Stevie's back. How was your trip, brother?
It was fantastic. I love not working.
That's true. It's always good. Well, I'm glad you're back, although it was fun to interview David. We've had our first interview. Next time, I hope you're there so you can answer hard questions.
I don't know. I thought he did a great job. I think this means I'm superfluous on this. Yeah.
We needed you for Father Time. We'll do that as a Patreon, sure. I know you already know, so. But speaking of Patreon, actually, we have now 5 subscribers. And I wanted to say thank you, mostly because it's just really cool to have people on board and supporting us. So thank you to Dave, Pam, Terry, Thomas, and Wes. Really appreciate all of you, actually. And anyone who gets on our Patreon and kind of joins our family and chimes in with the story, it just makes me happy. But to any of you who have not checked your Patreon messages, I want to send you a gift. So go check your messages and get back to me. That's just logistics. But all right. I'm both excited and a little bit nervous for today's story, as it's a really big one, and it deals with some of life's biggest concepts and questions. It's called War in Heaven by Charles Williams. And the title alone should give you some sense of the magnitude of this book. It's not really the length of it. It's really not all that long, but it's a battle between good and evil, both on a grand scale of time and space, but also down to each person individually. But for a book that focuses a lot on black magic and the power of evil, strange to say, but it's also really kind of funny. It reminded me of a quote from G.K. Chesterton, who said that fairy tales say that apples were golden only to refresh the forgotten moment when we found that they were green. It's a great quote. But this book comes at it from the other side. But the darkness in this story, more than anything, just seems to reflect and remind us of the light. And I wouldn't call this a fairy tale. It's more of a murder mystery with the epic adventure of the Holy Grail thrown in. What a crazy mashup. So get ready. It's time for a story.
An unknown corpse is found one day in a London publishing house. As the authorities scramble to try and find the killer, a country priest is allowed to read an unpublished text which claims to know the location of the Holy Grail. Amazingly, the location is his own parish. No sooner does he learn the identity of this holy relic than he also learns of others who are seeking it, some for good and some for evil purposes. What follows is a series of contests for possession of the Grail, but also for the souls of everyone involved, including the corpse.
This probably has the best opening line of any book I have ever read, but I do want to talk about Charles Williams first.
Okay, because I'm excited for that opening line too. It's brilliant.
It's so good. I think we should start putting in a spoiler alert for kind of every episode. If you listen to other stories we've done, you know that we go through the whole thing, start to finish. Mm-hmm. So if you're a person who likes to read the ending for yourself, go do that and then come back. Because we go through the whole thing. And yeah, this one has some twists in it for sure. There's your spoiler alert for today. But Charles Williams.
The Oddest Inkling. So Charles Williams, is he someone you knew about or had come across? Or?
Only because of this book that I read because you told me to several years ago, and it sticks with you.
I appreciate you for humoring me on this one because I discovered Charles Williams in college. I had never heard of him, but I studied chemistry in college. But my senior year, I got to take a course on C.S. Lewis and his circle. And this was the book that we read for that course. And I remember starting it in a coffee shop because we just did everything in coffee shops. And the first half of it, I was just kind of confused. And then the second half, I couldn't put it down. I read it in a blur, and I really wondered if it was the same book I picked up because it was, twists and turns. But even after reading this, I never really looked into Charles Williams. I didn't read any of his other works until fairly recently, and it was really getting more into C.S. Lewis that has gotten me more into Charles Williams. Because when you read through C.S. Lewis's letters, when you read through his diary, and when you read through Tolkien's letters, you realize how much of an impact Charles Williams had on C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis loved this guy to the point where he actually read one of his other works called The Place of the Lion and sent a fan letter that crossed in the mail with a fan letter that Charles Williams had sent to C.S. Lewis about his work, The Allegory of Love. And they had a close friendship and just loved each other's writings and really strongly influenced each other following that. Charles Williams is fascinating in part because he's kind of a self-made man. He does not have the educational credentials that guys like Lewis and Tolkien had, but he was so smart and so well read in his own right that those great titans of learning loved to learn from him and would actually go to his lectures. Charles Williams worked his way up through Oxford University Press. He started very lowly in the organization and by the end was a really, really important contributor to it. During World War II, the Oxford University Press, which was normally in London, actually moved to Oxford to avoid the bombings. And so Charles Williams actually went to Oxford. And this is where he got to actually participate in the Inklings meetings. And it's also where C.S. Lewis was able to get him teaching gigs, where he would actually speak about topics. And Lewis would go, and Tolkien would go, the other Inklings would go. These professors are going to listen to this uneducated guy speak about stuff. And there's some funny stories and some great things that come out of that.
So did the fan mail happen before he was a member of the Inklings?
Yes.
Okay, so he was invited kind of after he'd already read, C.S. Lewis had read his work?
C.S. Lewis invited him, basically said, anytime you're in Oxford, come on over. We have an informal group. And so he stood for him to come and join it. And then when Williams lived there during the war, he hung out all the time in the Inklings meetings.
Well, he clearly was well read, even from the references in this one book. So many of them. I mean, the context of this story is they're book publishers. That's where the corpse is found. In a publishing company in London.
Write about what you know.
Yeah. But so much knowledge of other writing. I had to go look up as many as I could, and there's still more. And I know you did as well. But he's so different than Tolkien or C.S. Lewis. I mean, they're different from each other for sure, but there's a lot more commonality. And then Charles Williams, I think the oddest Inkling is the right description. The adjectives I wrote down are weird, unsettling, and visionary.
Yeah.
Because he's not comfortable to read, but it's really, really well done. This story, even in the same chapter, happens from several different perspectives. You jump character to character, and you don't really backtrack. He somehow progresses it along, but through different perspectives. That's hard to do.
Very hard, yeah.
Oh, he's brilliantly done, though. But I did go look up the word occult with this book, because that is how it's described, where they publish things of the occult, and it talks of things of the occult. I mean, what does that word make you think of?
Magic, the hidden magic.
See, to me, it's darker, kind of dark magic specifically, not... Magic itself could be good or bad. Occult, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all.
Specifically dark magic.
Yes.
Yeah, this has, in essence, a dark sorcerer, a bad guy villain who is into devil worship. He is full on board. And those things are very hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy was a believer. I mean, he knew faith. He knew hope. He knew the Eucharist, which I know we'll talk more about in terms of this book. But reading that unsettling thing, you could come into it almost with, there's too much darkness. And I get that feeling in some of these chapters. There's a lot of darkness. So I think you really have to come into this one knowing how it ends. Strangely enough. I liked it better this time, knowing how it ends. I haven't read the Place of the Lion?
Place of the Lion.
Is that similar, where it kind of wraps itself up in the end and contextualizes the rest, or is it entirely different?
It's entirely different. So there are 3 of his great works that I've read, and I'm looking forward to reading some more. But the 3 that I've read, War in Heaven, The Place of the Lion, and one called Descent into Hell. And each one of them is wildly different, with a wildly different theme, and some similarities that go with it. So War in Heaven is a story that can be followed, and it's a Grail story, and it's delightful in those ways. Place of the Lion is all about Platonic ideals, the idea of the essence of something. Those who have read the 3rd book in C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy will kind of get a sense of a little what the Place of the Lion is. So the ending sequence of that, when the gods descend, that is Place of the Lion. And so it makes you think about these ideals, these realities that might exist beyond what we can see, which is very cool. Descent into Hell is exactly that. It's a story of the way people kind of make hell for themselves in their own souls and hearts, and you see it just work its way out in really disturbing ways in some of the characters, but you also see the opposite of that in some of the other characters. That's very beautiful. And what you see in Descent into Hell most clearly is one of Charles Williams' biggest concepts, something called substitution, which I can talk about here more in a minute. A little bit more about the background on Williams. You don't need to know any of this to appreciate the book, but I found it useful and kind of interesting because as you're reading through War in Heaven, yeah, it gets bleak. It gets dark. There are some chapters we're probably only going to touch lightly on because I refuse to research into them because they go dark places. Well, I think Charles Williams had done some of that research. And so I want to throw out the name of an order, which you may have heard of or come across in your reading. So the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Is that something you stumbled across anywhere?
Nope, tell me.
The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was very much a magical order. I mean, these were magicians trying to get together. They believed in this mystical magic kind of thing, and it had some very famous members. William Butler Yeats, a lot of people have heard of. Aleister Crowley, a lot of people have heard of. And a guy that a lot of people haven't heard of named Arthur Edward Waite. The thing about this Golden Dawn group was they couldn't agree on anything. There were some in it, like Aleister Crowley, who very much wanted this to be occult, wanted it to be magical, wanted to go down that road. There were others like Waite, who actually wanted this to be more of a mystical thing, almost more of a Christian thing, as opposed to an occult thing. And so this order fractured into a bunch of subgroups. So Aleister Crowley very famously took it to a dark place with his group. But on the other end, you have something called the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross that was started by Arthur Edward Waite. And it was meant to emphasize the mystic nature of kind of the world. And Charles Williams was a member of the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross, at least for a while. A lot of this, I think, was him a bit younger in life, and he kind of grew out of it as he became more and more developed in his theology and in his spiritual walk. But I think some of the occult stuff we see in here comes because of some experiences he had, or at least people he knew about. Charles Williams really developed one major topic that he always kept coming back to. It's something called co-inherence.
I wrote that down.
Yeah. Did it make sense to you?
I think it's more complex than I realize. I actually have a quote from St. Bonaventure University. They wrote an essay on Charles Williams, and I'm just going to read it because they know more about it than I do. The theological writings of Charles Williams, though original and strangely compelling in concept, are nonetheless difficult. The difficulty sometimes arises from stylistic matters. More often than not, it comes from either using old terms in novel ways or from the creation of new terms altogether. The centerpiece to all Williams' theology is a concept he called co-inherence. So tell us what it is.
Co-inherence originally is based off of descriptions of the Christian Trinity, the idea of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, that they co-inhere with one another, that they are their own person, but have the same substance. So there's a co-inherence or a connection between the Trinity. I mean, wars have been fought over this, and textbooks beyond understanding have been written about this. But that concept of things being joined, but also themselves, that Charles Williams took and applied it more broadly to not only the Trinity, but to also us in relationship to the divine, and also people in relationship to each other. The fact that we are ourselves, but we're not separate from those around us, that we are connected in ways that we don't understand and that we can't escape. that are just a part of the fabric of creation and being, is that we are connected to each other. But where he could take this is some really interesting places, particularly this concept of substitution, this idea that if you are in pain, there is some sort of way that I can take on some of that pain so that you don't have to. I can bear a burden that you have to ease your burden. But the other cool part about this is that burden, since it's not mine, is actually easier for me to bear. So it's a way of decreasing kind of this pain. And he believed very strongly in this concept that we're all in it together and to share each other's burdens and pain. And so that's coherence, that's substitution. And those are some of the bigger motifs, I think, in his works.
Yeah, interesting. Even in the order you described, that there were three guys and they broke off kind of three different ways. There's a lot of threes inside of this story as well. And they're not always on the same side. Sometimes they're kind of opposed to each other, kind of polarized triangle. But with the coherence, it's the idea that everything material is also spiritual. So that's that connectedness, that unity, that we are united. And I think that's how the idea of substitution would work. Because if you're already connected, you're allocating something across multiple sites instead of all on one.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the idea behind it.
The thing I took from just reading about Williams and the Inklings in general, and let's put Chesterton and George MacDonald in there, is they are able to emphasize good and the light in a way most authors and think about movies, they focus so much on the dark, and the darkness is in this story. He does not ignore it, does not diminish it, does not say it has no power. Jesus said the darkness had some power, but he could also cast out those demons. And what Williams and these other authors do is they make evil almost in right perspective, where it's not as powerful. The darkness cannot withstand the light. And I think that's really important to keep in mind as we go through this story, because when you hit the plot points, you're like, wow, that's bad. And it is.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the story. It's not the most powerful thing. It's out of context to focus on that as the utmost. And he does a phenomenal job with that. I think it's hard to do, to write it that way. It's things of the heart, again, that are hard to convey, but he does it.
I think that's very true. I guess I do have one more story about him. It's worth knowing that Charles Williams wrote novels like this, but he was prolific. He wrote plays, he wrote theology works, and he wrote literary criticism in addition to just being an editor and a publisher. And where he was really well known in kind of professional circles was on his love of Dante. And so he is still quoted extensively in the field of a work he wrote on Beatrice, which is a character. Well, it is the woman that Dante wrote the Divine Comedy for, is Beatrice. And from this come a lot of medieval and Renaissance attitudes towards courtly love and chivalry and love in general. And so when he was in Oxford, this was a lot of what he was lecturing on, was love. The other thing he was lecturing on was chastity, virginity, because that was not really a popular thing in Oxford at that time or anywhere throughout any time period. But Lewis says that he would go for an hour on this topic, and his opinions of it and the way he took it from the medieval world and described it was so just like fascinating that these college kids are sitting through the lecture and coming back to another one to listen about it. Well, the Inklings made fun of him for that, I guess, quite a bit. I think this was Tolkien who they were talking about it, and Lou said, yeah, he went and he did another lecture on the chastity, and Tolkien quipped, oh yeah, Williams, he's becoming a common chastitute.
Sounds like a t-shirt.
I guess there's just one other thing that I think might be helpful to know before they start reading this book, because there's some confusing terms, is maybe a little terminology about the Church of England and the Anglican faith. because there's some terms in here that if you don't know what they mean are going to be confusing. And so let me just walk through this with you and see if this clarifies some things a little bit. So when it comes to the leadership of the Church of England, the Anglican Church, you have the Archbishop. The Archbishop is the head bishop. And within this communion, every country usually has their own Archbishop and sort of the guy in charge, the Archbishop. Under that, you have the bishops, and the bishops supervise multiple priests. It is really at the bishop level that a lot of the power resides, and so the bishop is definitely an individual with a great deal of authority, and the priests respond to the bishop. Under the bishop, you have the priest, but priests can occur in a few different forms. So the lead priest in a parish or church is called a rector. So if you hear the term rector, that's just a priest, but it's the head priest of a particular church or parish. You'll then see the term deacon. A deacon in the Anglican tradition is clergy. They wear the collar. They do have to be ordained, but they're not at the level of a priest and can't do some of the things the priest can do. They're more servants. The very word means servant, and so they tend to do a lot of the practical things. They do a lot of things with, the money. They do a lot of things with teaching. They do a lot of things with upkeep. So they're below the level of a priest in terms of authority, but they are considered clergy. Just to confuse things, you'll also hear the term vicar. Vicar can be used in a lot of different ways across a lot of different traditions, but in the Anglican, it usually means a priest or clergy of some kind is the vicar, somebody who's wearing the collar. There's a couple other terms that come up to just confuse things. So I just said that the deacon is below a priest in terms of authority. It doesn't have that same level of power, but the main character in this book is the archdeacon. The archdeacon is not really a deacon. It's a priest, but a priest who works for a bishop. An archdeacon tends to supervise a number of priests in an area, and that's what our main character is going to be. So he is an ordained priest, but he's in a special relationship to the bishop, and so he is an archdeacon in that way. I guess the closest comparison I can come up with is in the Navy. People kind of understand the admiral, and people understand a captain of a ship, but sometimes you'll hear this term commodore. A commodore is basically a guy in charge of a bunch of captains, but isn't actually an admiral himself. So that's kind of where the archdeacon fits in. You'll hear the term canon. A canon is somebody who works for the bishop in a number of different ways. That can be a priest or it can be a lay person. You'll hear the term sexton. A sexton is a lay person who helps take care of the grounds. So classically, they were the ones who would dig the graves and take care of the funerals on church cemeteries, but they're also in charge of things like changing the light bulbs and sweeping up and fixing the hinges on the doors. So the sexton is somebody who helps take care of the grounds. There's the term vestry. So the vestry would be kind of like a board of elders. They're usually in charge of money stuff. They're usually lay. They're not priests, but they vote and help with the money of the whole system. And then within the vestry, you usually have a series of wardens, a junior warden and a senior warden. So it's complicated and confusing, but for this book, I think the most important thing to know is that the archdeacon is an Anglican priest.
And the bishop's out of town, so.
Yeah, he can't get a hold of the bishop. He's kind of a modern bishop.
The whole story. So archdeacon, that's the pivotal point there. But it's interesting. Anything that's been around a long time seems to have layers and half layers. Chapter 1 of this book is annoying because it's called The Prelude.
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
He's odd. He's the
odd.
oddest Inkling.
All right. Read the first line.
Chapter 1, The Prelude. The telephone bell was ringing wildly, but without result, since there was no one in the room but the corpse.
Excellent. It conveys a lot. So there are a lot of characters in this book, so I think we'll try hard to contextualize them. So there's several men who work at this publishing office where the corpse is found under a desk. His legs are sticking out. And Lionel Rackstraw, whose desk it is, walks in back from lunch, and he's annoyed that there's a man lying under his desk.
Yeah, he needs to get out. What is he doing? He keeps going through his brain to come up with theories that would justify why a body would have legs sticking out under his desk. But the theories keep kind of getting shot down because the guy isn't moving.
He's like, hey, buddy, you going to be a long time? Like, Time to get moving. Here's a quote. It says, dead bodies did not usually lie around in one of the rooms of a publisher's office in London about 2:30 in the afternoon. Apparently this was out of the ordinary, thankfully. But eventually he has the thought, oh, he might be dead. Yeah.
After he has a phone call, I mean, the phone was ringing. He goes in and answers it, and he has this conversation, this very business-like conversation. But finally, he goes to talk to somebody.
And so here we meet Kenneth Mornington, which is a really good name. I like that. Kenneth Morning. It's strong. But let's just put an adjective to each of these guys as we go. So Lionel, the guy who found the corpse, he is a fatalist. He is paranoid. He is neurotic about just everyday things anyway.
Yeah. Pessimistic is the word that kept going through my head with him.
Very, very. Like, my wife was going to get hit by a car. What if all the fruit is poisoned that we're eating right now? Like, off the wall, based on nothing. And then Kenneth, he's kind of just cynical. So this guy, Lionel, walks in and says, I think there's a dead guy under my desk. And he says, how fortunate. If he weren't dead and he was under there, I'm paraphrasing, but it would be weird. It might have meant that you annoyed him.
That wouldn't make sense at all. Yeah.
So then he's speculating in his head about next time someone annoys him, he's just going to go lie under their desk and not move.
I love the word cynical as a descriptor. The other one for him is just poet.
Yeah.
So he has a poetic heart. He's a poet. Again, on the cynical side, but poetic.
Oh, these guys work at a publishing company and they are well read. All of them know and reference many works of literature across history and time, and they come up throughout. But Kenneth goes over to the office and they realize, okay, there really is a problem. They go get the police and they're, thinking about keeping it quiet, right? They think about the headlines and the gossip. Where's the boss? The boss's name is Stephen Persimmons. He's out too.
Yeah.
They're all busy.
They're working.
But eventually the police come, and when Stephen Persimmons walks in, clearly there's been a to-do, and they are taking interviews. Everybody has a really good alibi. Mm-hmm. Lionel clearly has no clue who this man is. They learned, yep, he was strangled. Kenneth has no clue who this guy is. Not any relationship of any kind. Random small man dead under a desk.
With no identification, nothing to be able to give a name, no clue why this guy is here.
They find papers on him. Do they talk about that here or later? Can't remember.
They do.
They're from a church.
Yeah, from a Wesleyan church. So we know that towards the end. Yes, we do get information on that here.
Yeah, so they know he was at a church, but again, no name. There's just nothing identifiable about this man. And the boss, Stephen Persimmons, he is a fearful fellow. I mean, how would you describe him?
Weak.
Very weak. Definitely in his father's shadow. His
Beaten
dad
down.
Yeah.
I mean, abused is really the way I think of him.
I don't think other people know that, but internally, yes, for sure. His dad, this was his father's publishing company, and he's been out of the business a while now, but clearly he's referenced all the time. Well, when my father was here and the things my father chose to publish. And even here, I think they mentioned old stuff they used to publish was from the occult.
Pretty creepy.
A lot of occult things.
None of them seem to really like that, but it's a business. And okay,
Right.
That's what the old boss used to do, so that's what we do. But the younger Persimmons, Stephen Persimmons, seems to have expanded the firm a bit.
He spells his name right, just like you.
Yeah,
With the
there we go.
PH.
There we go.
We say that because Stephen used to get mail all the time for Stephen with a V. What was best is when he got mail for Stephanie. That was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
We thought that was very funny when you were, 6. So funny.
Hasn't happened for a while.
Anyway, as they're talking to Stephen Persimmons, the younger, they learn about Lionel. They test out Lionel's alibi, and he was meeting with an author. There's a lot of names in this.
There are.
So Sir Giles Tumulty is the author, and he writes this thing that has the most boring title in the world: Historical Vestiges of Sacred Vessels in Folklore.
Yeah.
I would not read that.
Well,
You would.
I would.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would snore.
You're right. There's a lot of names. There's only one other name here I'm going to mention, and that's Colquhoun. Colquhoun is the inspector, the police guy, because he'll show up later.
Yeah.
We've cut out all the other names that don't show up at other times, but these ones do show up. Lionel Rackstraw, Kenneth Mornington, Stephen Persimmons, Sir Giles Tumulty, Cocoon the inspector, and then the older Persimmons will be Gregory, who doesn't show up in the first chapter but gets mentioned quite a lot.
Yeah, the inspector is funny talking to the boss. He asks him, "Are you religious?" And not really. But the inspector says, "I've been to a church 2 times recently. It's this Wesleyan church where my wife goes. And both times they talked about the same verse. I say unto all, watch." And he's like, if more people did that, we'd have fewer crimes, fewer dead bodies under desks.
Direct application of scripture is what that is. So it got through to him. So glad to see it.
Well, and he's shocked, I think, that nobody knows anything about this dead body. They didn't see him come in. They didn't see him leave. Nobody knows.
You had mentioned earlier how this is kind of a funny book, and this first chapter sets that tone, this macabre dead body, but they're kind of cracking jokes, this almost British sense of the ridiculous, like what is happening here, just the whole thing. And so something that is pretty dark, somebody dead, really, you chuckle as you're reading through it because it has that sort of murder mystery, what's going on, and this is where all the pieces get in place for the mystery.
Yeah, so each time honestly, it's not even at the chapter breaks. Frequently, the perspective changes, okay? But it's the story moving forward. So we're just going to roll with it. That's how it's written. And it conveys the story really well. Next, we meet Adrian Rackstraw. Same last name as Lionel, the guy whose desk the guy was killed under. So Adrian's busy. He's making dinner. But he forgot that he needed potatoes. He has got the chicken in the oven, but then he goes, orders potatoes. He thinks, nope, the train. And you think, wow, why are you getting on the train? And then suddenly his mom breaks in and breaks up his train set. He's a little boy. It's Lionel's little boy. His name is Adrian. And the perspective on it is wonderful because you can't tell until his mom breaks in and feels bad that she wrecked his toys.
And it's shocking.
It's shocking.
It's shocking because you wonder, what is going on? Why is he getting on the train? Didn't he just pay for potatoes? What happened? Yeah, it's really well written.
Yeah, so here's where Lionel comes home after this day, really a shocking time. And for a guy who's kind of in his head all the time, he says he's curiously free of the ghost of it, of the ghost of finding this man murdered. And which is funny because he's totally a worrier. Mm-hmm. But it's very internalized. Why do you think this didn't bother him?
I think this did, if we read through this. So this chapter is the evening in 3 homes. So of those people we met in the first chapter, we get these vignettes within their homes after they go home from work. And Lionel, I think, acts like it doesn't bother him. I think it's a facade because this whole time he's kind of wanting his wife to bring it up. Haven't you seen it in the paper? And this is all this internal monologue. Like he needs it to come out. He wants to talk about it and express it. But she didn't see it. And so he, in his pessimism, assumes that she's doing this intentionally. I mean, he really racks things around in his brain and eventually brings it up. And she shows some sympathy. I mean, seems appropriate. But in his brain, I think he is far more rattled. So that initial statement that the cloud didn't hang over him, I don't know that that's true because it really does seem to haunt him.
I wondered if it was to demonstrate how bleak he is in his own mind all the time. Like, of course people would be murdered. Kind of thing. But you're right. He is upset and he wants his wife to find. Her name is Barbara. She too is in this story. There are a lot of characters and it's amazing how you learn quite a bit about all of them in a not very long book. But it's because as you move through, you get it from their perspective.
Yeah.
She's very sweet. Mm-hmm. And she takes care of him. She comforts him when she does learn it. Like, oh, darling, how terrible for you. And seems earnest.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of skill he demonstrates with that because we're just into the second chapter and already we know the Rackstraws fairly well. We know the little boy who just loves to play and is cheerful. We know the mom who is a mom. We know the dad who is a worrywart about everything. And it didn't take long to do. And it wasn't that the author told us these things. He showed them to us by their thought process, by their actions, and by their conversation.
Yeah, well put. So then, in the same chapter, we go to Kenneth Mornington, the other man at the publisher's office. And he's thinking of it in his head that well, of course people get murdered. You hear about that. Why shouldn't it happen here? He's normalizing it. And so he says, he's quoting someone I don't know. Maybe you do. But it says, some people have a natural aptitude for being murdered.
I didn't look it up. No,
I think it was De Quincey. He's like, who says that? But of course this happens. And he's not going to let it change his routine. He was planning to take the vicar some papers. And so he does. He heads out the door to take the vicar some papers.
I love this line because it reminds me of Nigel. Remember, Nigel was the one who wished he didn't have such a soft heart because it usually meant he felt bad about things he should be doing. Well, Mornington here says he disliked himself for doing work that he disliked, but he had never been able to refuse to help any of his friends, and the vicar might be numbered among them.
That is very Nigel. Good point. But here's where he also meets the Archdeacon of Castra Parvulorum, which is such a pretentious, cool-sounding place. It's a town, Castra Parvulorum, which means something about children.
Yeah, so this can be translated in different ways. Let's walk through it together. Castra is Latin for camp or fort, particularly a military fort or camp. So a Roman legion would set up a castra, and that would be their fort or their camp. Can be temporary, can be long-term, can be big, can be small, but it's a camp or a fort. Parvus is the little ones. So the small ones. Children, yes, it can be used in that sense, but the idea of little or insignificant or small or children. And that long olorum just means of the. That's the genitive form of it. So castra parvulorum is the camp of the children or the fort of the unimportant, the camp of the lesser. And so it's a very, very cool, pompous sounding name for something that's actually very humble.
Yeah, this is a really funny interaction, actually, because the vicar and the archdeacon they did read about it in the paper, the murder. And Kenneth says, yeah, that actually happened at our office. And they are sympathetic. And he just shows himself annoyed that he missed a payment on something. And it's just this total bother because everybody made such a fuss about this murder. And they're like, it's kind of a big deal. He's like, yeah, that is a big deal. We missed it. So again, jaded poet, cynical poet.
The archdeacon, though, is surprisingly unflustered by this whole thing.
Very
He's
calm.
a little bit on Kenneth's side here. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry you missed that.
Yeah, he's a calm man, kind man. But he wanted to talk to Kenneth about a book that he'd written on the League of Nations.
Mm-hmm.
And so they discussed it a little bit, his book. And this Castra Parvulorum, it's hard to say, Castra Parvulorum, he talks about his town, his parish that he's from. It's changed to Fardels.
Isn't that great?
And it comes with a chuckle. And they mention Grimm's Law, which I did look up. Do you know this one?
Yes.
You go ahead then. I didn't know it naturally. You probably did.
Languages follow a natural progression. If you ever wonder how linguists can say, well, we think this word came from this word, from this word, from this word, it's because the way the human mouth is shaped, and honestly, because of the laziness of the way we speak, there tend to be common sound changes that happen across all cultures over time, where you can predict what sounds are going to happen. The brothers Grimm were some of the first to really write on this. Yes, those Grimm brothers, the ones that did the fairy tales. Grimm's Law is a description of the way these word changes and sound changes can occur. And so it's a way you can track the history of a language over time and across cultures.
Yeah, it's basically how Germanic and Latin have shifted together and become Castra Parvulorum becomes Fardels. It's the same thing.
He actually describes it in one paragraph here, which I think is really well done. The archdeacon answered, the Castra was dropped, and in Parvulorum, the P became F and the V became D. And Grimm discovered what had happened, but I try and keep the old name as well as I can. It's not far from London. It's a pretty good description.
Yeah, at the end, we see a little bit more of Kenneth's kind of cynicism. They talk about Job, which I thought was interesting because he's mentioned later in the book, Job from the Bible. And I think it's Kenneth who says that Job was taunted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're talking about, there's different ways you can read Job. And he's looking at Job as God taunted him and didn't really give him much answer in response.
I think the archdeacon answers something like, Job seemed to be impressed.
Yeah.
It's, again, understated. He's not preaching. He's not lecturing. He's not hitting hard. He's soft-spoken, intelligent, and answers questions and makes comments that are witty and profound, but pretty quiet.
Yeah, they're very insightful. You'd have to think about it. Job did seem to be impressed. But this piece ends where the archdeacon's going to bring him a copy of his book. And then the last section here is we meet the elder persimmons, Gregory. He comes into the office to talk to his son, Stephen. And he's a bully. He intentionally stresses out his son. He comments that, well, your mom went mad and so that happened. You know, they just have this very stressful relationship where Gregory likes to poke at him and Stephen reacts not well. Weak is the response.
Weak is the response. And Gregory is poking and pressing buttons and seems to love it. And we initially described this as a murder mystery. Spoiler, it's not much of a murder mystery because in this chapter, chapter 2, Gregory Persimmons tells Stephen, oh yeah, I did it. I needed a place to kill a man. Stephen doesn't know whether to believe him. Stephen never knows whether to believe his father on this. But yeah, his father is dark.
And then he taunts Stephen. I think that's where the taunt idea is tucked in there because he's taunting his son. He says, so are you willing to hang me? I kind of think you aren't, right? If he was found guilty of murder, he would be hanged. And so Stephen doesn't really know what to do with this. He also casually threatens his son, kind of threatens him always to take back his company or to say that he did it, make up something. Just really capricious and flat out mean in a very calm way.
Yeah, just cold, calculating evil and cruelty. And this chapter, again, we're only in chapter 2, but it ends in a strange way. Odd is the best way I can describe all of this. There's a line from Gregory at the second to last chapter that ends with, he's talking about how, you know, he wished he had Stephen younger again because he could torment him even more. There's things he knows more now that he could really screw him up. And he talks about, you know, his wife that he drove insane and put in the asylum. And, you know, he's talking about how, you know, he wants more opportunities for these things. And he says, I want another child and I want the Grail. Where did that come from?
Yeah, totally out of the blue.
Out of nowhere. You want the Grail? Okay.
Like the Grail, like the Holy Grail?
Are you likely to get it?
Is there another Grail?
What's going on here? And so if you're confused at this point, I certainly was.
Yes, that is the take on it.
But hey, we solved the murder.
Yay! One person knows. So the next one is, there's the inquest. Okay, this man was murdered and it is not satisfactory. Just nobody knows what happened. There's really no leads. The inspector's annoyed, but Mornington is about to meet with the archdeacon afterward. And he remembered that Lionel had that lunch meeting with that guy who wrote that really boring sounding book about old vessels of folklore. And in his mind, he thinks, the archdeacon might find that interesting. And he does. Kenneth does seem to be very good at his job.
Yeah, he does.
So he goes and asks Lionel if he can have a copy of it. So this book has not been published yet. It's almost done. So he asks for the proofs, right? The final version of the book as it stands right now. And Lionel's busy, says, yep, take it and go.
Yeah.
And after that, Lionel receives a last-minute post from the author, Sir Giles, that says, basically, in terrible handwriting, he's getting annoyed by the handwriting, remove a short paragraph on page 218.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is almost done for printing, and he, last minute, remove a short paragraph on page 218. And then in another room, we get to see the archdeacon talking to Mornington, who gives him this copy of this book. And they actually have a really cool conversation about the archdeacon's writing, where Kenneth thinks it's kind of a relation between author and publisher is very abstract. It's an impersonal duel. And the archdeacon thinks, no, that's not, doesn't have to be that way.
He seems to have so little, how to word this. He loves what he wrote and he thinks it has value, but he also doesn't think he needs to push it because if they say it doesn't have value, he's good. His duty is to present it. I made this thing. I think it has value. Judge it as you will. It's a really humble approach. I think there are very few authors that would have that approach, and Mornington seems to imply.
He agrees with you. Yeah.
Has not been his experience.
That is not normal. Authors. And then, again with the threes, things happen in threes. So the archdeacon's visiting with Kenneth, And Gregory shows up to talk to Stephen again, but Barbara also shows up. Lionel's wife shows up with her son, and there's definitely an elephant in the room because she's sitting on the desk above where they found the dead man. But she brings her boy in to visit his dad. They're in the town.
So as they're in that room and Gregory is talking with them, it says that in the other room, the archdeacon is reading. And shall I just read the passage?
218, page 218.
It seems probable, therefore, the book ran, if we consider these evidences and the hypothetical scheme which has been adduced, not altogether unreasonably, to account for all the facts which we have, a scheme which may be destroyed in the future by discovery of some further fact, but till then may not unjustifiably be considered to hold the field, it seems probable that the reputed Grail may be so far definitely traced and its wanderings followed as to permit us to say that it rests at present in the parish church of Fardels.
Do you see why I wouldn't read that book?
Yeah,
it's very wordy.
It is indeed. That
but the important point.
He needs a good editor.
He does. He seems hard to work with. We learn more about him, and he is not kind. But the archdeacon thinks,
yeah.
I'm the archdeacon of Fardels. He's not dumb, though. He puts it together, but interesting. And I like this quote because, again, he has a really wonderful perception of what matters. He wrote this book. That was the important part, and it's either going to be big or it's not. It's going to be published or it's not. About the Grail, the Holy Grail. He says, in one sense, the Grail is unimportant. But so many people put altogether undue importance on these exterior and material things. But he does ask for a copy of that book.
Yeah, he's interested.
Who wouldn't be?
Yeah. I'm in Fardels.
Oh my gosh, uncanny. So he's on his way. He asks for a copy of the book when it's published, and the archdeacon's heading out from his meeting. And he overhears Gregory Persimmons, who he doesn't know. He's just overheard it. But he hears Gregory talking to Adrian's mom, Barbara, and he's teaching her how to teach children. And what he taught his son is be afraid to do wrong. That's a little bleak, isn't it?
It is. And the archdeacon thinks this is bleak, and he pauses. He almost, but then thinks, not my place, and he moves on.
Yeah, so Gregory is there and talking to the Rackstraws, and he offers them a place to vacation. Well, Lionel's had a hard time. But he likes Barbara. He likes Adrian. Presumably, they hit it off. Mm-hmm. So he offers them a place at his country home, which also happens to be in Fardels, to vacation on his estate. I mean, can you imagine just having an estate? Who are these people? Wow.
They are wealthy British, or at least Gregory Persimmons is. And I love how in Britain all these estates have names. So his estate is just called Cully. That's kind of fun. He's going to go to Cully, and they are invited to spend some time on holiday.
So the archdeacon has a bit of a smile about the name of Cully, and I tried to figure out why it would make him smile. Do you know? I don't
have any.
I looked it up, and it means many different things, depending which way you go. I don't know why it would make him smile, though. If anybody knows, I'd be curious.
I don't have a good answer on that one.
But we do learn the archdeacon's name is Julian Davenant, which I just think is a phenomenal name. Very good. He's also very well read. We learn more about him as he returns home. He goes to look for this chalice. They have a box of unmarked vessels, and he finds the one that they don't know where it came from. We learn more about him. He likes to fence.
Yeah, that's how he exercises. He just enjoys it.
Well, he loved it as a child.
It's a boyish passion that he's kept up for the exercise.
I know. He's wonderful. We'd be friends, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he's looking at this chalice, this cup, and it's very unremarkable.
It was old enough, that appeared certain. It was plain enough, too, almost severe. The drinking cup itself was some 6 inches in depth, with a stem in proportion, and a small pedestal, which was carried by slowly narrowing work up some distance of the stem. The whole was about 15 or 16 inches high.
So, what is the Holy Grail?
Oh,
so if nobody's ever heard of the Grail, I hope you have, but there's more. But throughout this, they mention the Grail like it's common knowledge. So what is the Grail?
Well, I think I probably first came to the Grail, as many people did, in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Mm-hmm. Wonderful movie and a very sympathetic treatment of the Grail. It was great. The Grail is a huge theme in medieval and later literature and art. It is such a big topic that is very hard for me to really know where to start and very hard for me to really know where to end.
Let me jump in with a short version, though. In essence, it's thought to be the cup that Jesus used at the Last Supper.
It
In some
came to be
tellings.
regarded as that.
I know it's more complicated, but that's what they're talking about. So they use it. They use these cups. Why he has these vessels in the church, or they use them for the Eucharist, right? The taking of communion, right?
In the church, yes, it is a chalice. It is a cup to give the blood of Christ in the Eucharist or the Mass. Where the Grail started, though, was from a French author named Chrétien de Troyes. And in our Arthur sampler, you would have heard us mention this gentleman. He was the first to come up with Lancelot. He was the first to come up with a lot of things, but one of the things he came up with was a Grail. Now, hear the wording on that. A Grail, not the Grail, and certainly not the Holy Grail or the Sacred Grail or the San Grail. It was a Grail. A Grail is just a dish. It's like a platter, usually with a little bit of depth to it that you eat out of. So food, meat, bread, all sorts of things can come out of a Grail. And so he was describing this procession that included a bleeding lance and a Grail. And this was in his works. And so this is where we first get the Grail to appear. The Grail shows up in different forms and different way in other works. So classically, the German author Wolfgang von Eschenbach wrote Parzival, where the Grail is the whole theme of this work, but it's not a plate or a cup. It's actually a stone. It's actually a jewel in that one. But it has healing powers. It actually has more in common with like the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone of Harry Potter than it does with what we would normally think about the Grail. It was Robert de Boron, though, who first made the connection between this vessel and the cup of Christ. And the cup of Christ is used in two ways. One, it is the cup at the Last Supper. So at the Last Supper, when Jesus initiated "this is my blood, drink this in remembrance of me," that was the cup he used. And according to legend, this got further extended to where that cup was actually brought to the crucifixion, to the cross itself, and some of the actual blood of Christ was caught within this cup. By tradition, it was then taken by Joseph of Arimathea, and then the stories go wild from there. And so this is the Grail. Where it really came into its own as a plot point or a story point, though, was in association with the Arthurian Knights. So it is the Grail that was seen in part at the Feast of Pentecost in Arthur's court, and the knights saw this wonderful holy thing that filled the room with beautiful scents and light and food and all this stuff, that they then swore to go out seeking it. And in many versions of the Arthurian legend, this is actually the beginning of the breaking of the fellowship. When Arthur heard these oaths to go on this quest, he didn't rejoice because he knew that the fellowship was never going to be together again. And so the knights went out and searched for them. Most did not reach it. According to several versions of the legend, Lancelot was able to get close. He was able to get to the Grail Castle, but he was not allowed to see it because of his sin with Guinevere. Usually there are 3 knights that are given credit for accomplishing the Grail quest. There is Sir Galahad, the son of Lancelot and the purest, greatest knight of Arthur's court. Galahad does not survive the quest. When he has achieved union with the Grail and gets to take mass from the Grail, he's ready to go to heaven. Basically, how could he come back to the earth? And so he doesn't. He gives up his soul and he moves on into heaven at that point. Percival is usually seen, Sir Percival, as achieving the Grail. He and his sister are both very pious, very holy in the stories, and he hangs around for a while after he sees the Grail, but then dies. It is Sir Bors, the third of them, that actually gets to see the Grail and then returns to Arthur's court to tell the story. So I could go for hours on this. The Grail is awesome. We haven't even gotten into Celtic cauldrons of plenty and old stuff on that too, but it's amazing.
Yeah, and Indiana Jones does do a good job of demonstrating much about the Grail in really a short amount of time. And in that story, it focuses on the healing power of the Grail.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I think in most stories, that's the idea. It has some power, some remnant of the touch of Christ. If the story developed into it, that's what the archdeacon comments on. When he touches it, he thinks, wow, my hands are where my Lord's hands were. So this is a beautiful concept, but he also thinks that people think a lot too much of it. A great many people might attach a great deal of importance to this cup.
Yeah.
Whether it is or it isn't, they might. And so he thinks about putting it back and prays it through. He's always praying, his mercy endureth forever. That's his ongoing chant. But I love his internal dialogue here, where he's thinking about its life is hidden with Christ in God, like everything else, like a flower, like a bed. There's that coherence where even something as simple as a bed can demonstrate something positive about God. Like, how do you look at a bed? And he kind of shakes the feeling off as he's thinking through these things. But this is a deep thinker.
Oh, yeah.
He's thinking about these things all the time. And he puts the chalice, I think, in the rectory, not in the typical place. Mm-hmm. And then randomly, Gregory Persimmons, the elder Persimmons, shows up and offers to buy one. Not just offers, kind of demands.
Oh, yeah. In his smooth British lord way. I don't think he's actually nobility. He's just rich.
He's wealthy.
But yeah, he spins this story about how there's another priest who's just starting a parish, and he would love to be able to give him this older cup. Hey, I heard you had an old chalice. What can I pay you for it? And the archdeacon isn't taken in for a moment.
Like, why wouldn't you buy a new one? Doesn't that seem nicer? He's like, oh no, he's much into the history and what does he say? The stored power and concentrated sanctity of a second-hand chalice. I mean, he really pushes this hard, and the archdeacon deflects him fairly well without being rude. He's like, yeah, we have some other ones. That's not it. There's another church who just replaced theirs. I bet you could have theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he comes up with a great solution that meets everything that Gregory just said he wanted. Gregory is taken aback, though, because he didn't think he was going to get any pushback from this. And he says, well, okay, I guess that won't work. I tried, kind of thing.
And so he walks off. And the next morning when the archdeacon comes to the church, the doors are torn off a church. I mean, it is ransacked. The poor box is empty. But luckily, he has another chalice to use. So he goes and actually grabs this secondhand chalice that he found the day before. And as he picks it up, he feels like there's music emanating from this cup. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And so through it, what's the right verb? He performs the Eucharist? What's the verb for it?
Officiates. He officiates the Eucharist.
He officiates the Eucharist with this cup that he found that may or may not be the Holy Grail.
Which to him, he's not sure he cares whether it's the Grail or not. I mean, he's thinking. He's a deep thinker. I love that he talks about earlier in this chapter how he's excited that it's in the hands of the church. He says, they could not, for example, sell it to a millionaire. But why, the archdeacon asked himself, should he object to it being sold to a millionaire? I mean, he's really trying to figure out what's right about this.
Yeah, I think during the service, he's thinking about the ritual and the tradition of the Eucharist and with this cup, but his line in his head is, neither is this thou. Mm-hmm. Because it is the rite, it is the actual service, it is not the cup that makes it.
It points to the reality that is greater. It is a tool for communion. It's where the word communion comes from, right? Co-inherence, this unity, this binding, but it is not the Lord. It is a tool by which the Lord can be experienced. And I think that's a healthy way of approaching it.
Yeah. So after the church service, this tramp kind of comes through, and his housekeeper had talked to the tramp and offered him food, and he kind of brushed her off. Clearly, this tramp was looking for the archdeacon. He's also looking for a way into his home. He asked for work, but he turns it down from someone else. It's weird. There's something else going on. It's evident. But the archdeacon's thinking later, okay, there's at least something here. So it's at least my job to keep it secure, and then we'll talk to the bishop.
Yeah, he's trying to decide what to do with it because he's a man under authority. It's really not up to him, and he knows that. He can't get a hold of his bishop. His bishop it describes that he runs things through platforms and public meetings and public telephone boxes and train stations. So he's hard to get a hold of this young guy. And he thinks, well, maybe I could put it in the bank. Should I take it to the bishop? But then he thinks, well, what would I tell the bishop? And I love this line. He's imagining what he would do to this fairly, young man about town. He would say, he would put it down and say, "This is the Holy Grail. I believe it to be so because of a paragraph and some proofs, a man who tried to buy it for a mission church and said that children ought to be taught not to do wrong, a burglary at my church, and another man who asked the way to Fardels. Would a young, energetic, modern bishop believe it?" He does not think so.
It seems a little far-fetched. It's true. But he does think, okay, the bank. I can put it in the bank and, kick it down the road. He's also heading out on what is an archdeacon's vacation called? I'm sure there's a word. Everything in the church has a word.
I'm sure there is. It's vacation.
Vacation.
Let's call it vacation.
He has another guy coming in to take over his responsibilities for a short, and he's on his way out. So he has the cup in a bag. He's going to transport it to a bank. And a car runs up behind him. And from the other way, somebody calls his name. He's on this lonely lane. He turns and gets hit on the back of the head. And then immediately he's knocked out. And we're from the Gregory Persimmon's perspective that tramp who came through, that's his henchman. He hits the archdeacon on the back of the head. They take the cup and then they rescue him. Like someone attacked you and I helped you. You're welcome. Mm-hmm. He rescues him. We better call the police.
Yeah. I enjoy how all these wealthy and aristocratic British men they've got a man.
They've got a man.
a body servant or somebody who does things for them. And Persimmon's man is Ludding. He's an unsavory character.
It's a good henchman name.
Yeah. So it's Ludding who bops the archdeacon on the head.
Yeah. And they take the cup. And they get away with it. The archdeacon got hit on that. He was out cold, but he's okay. And then we jump back to the inspector in London, and he's frustrated. There was a murder, and he's got terrible eyewitnesses. There's descriptions of a man with a beard, a young man with no beard, and everything in between. It's just confusing, and he's getting annoyed.
Yeah.
And here I think is where we meet Sir Giles Tumulty.
Yeah, he's just an unsavory character.
Very unlikable. He's the author of the boring book with the page 218 that says the Grail's located in Fardels. But he is just rude and angry.
To everyone. And he's so it's Sir Giles Tumulty. So this is nobility. He's got money, he's got authority, he's got rank, he's obviously studied extensively, and he seems to have this real interest in religious phenomenon of all kinds. And we learn that it's not just the good kinds, it's not just things like the Grail. He also has an extreme interest in the occult, but he is so condescending to everyone and everything. Like he's titillated by this. He thinks it's interesting, but he doesn't really believe any of it.
Yeah.
He's that kind of thinker in that way. That's the impression I got of him.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't place value on anything, and yet he exerts all this time and energy across the world to research things. He's this angry bystander, kind of this objective outsider, kind of by design. And in the police interview, he's rude to the policeman.
Very much.
Very rude. If I'm reading into names, Tumulty is tumultuous. I mean, think so. We'll go with it. Although that was pretty blatant, so I don't know if that's actually right. But we also see that the archdeacon sends a letter to Kenneth Mornington. And it's very long because he is a polite and well thought out man and thanks him for his interest in his book. But he does call out that he got the copy of that Vessels and Folklore book when it came out. And he noticed that there's a paragraph missing. And he does invite Kenneth to come visit.
That's right. He's got some books, some early editions that he might appreciate.
And it turns out that Kenneth is soon to go on vacation himself. So walking tours in Britain, is this a thing? A pilgrimage?
The only way I know about walking tours is because of C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
He did them nonstop. When I first read Out of the Silent Planet, and it starts with Ransom on a walking tour, I kind of thought it was weird, but apparently, yeah, it's a thing. Lewis would do them every year. He would gather his friends around, and they would plan for months, and then he just loved them. So I guess for some people anyway, yeah, it was a thing.
Yeah, Ransom is where I learned of them in Out of the Silent Planet, the C.S. Lewis book. But here, Mornington's planning one. Also, Harold Fry. He wasn't planning to go on one, but he does one. And evidently, that's not super weird there. So here, I feel like it would be weird.
It would be weird here.
Out of the ordinary.
I mean, it's almost a hitchhiking tour, sort of, but it's walking and
You're planning to walk.
planning to walk. We do learn here as well that the archdeacon sent the letter, and Mornington confesses that actually puts him in kind of an awkward spot because he's not really sure if he was supposed to be showing the proof. It's not illegal, but it's kind of a gray area. And so he shares this with the archdeacon and basically says, do what you think is right. I would prefer to not be involved if that's possible, though. And
Yeah, and here's where we see that the author, Sir Giles, he knows Gregory. And Gregory Persimmons was the one who asked him to remove that paragraph last minute that identified the location of the Grail. So he's the mastermind behind it all. And they're just angry together, those two.
But Gregory seems to want something from Sir Giles. Again, Giles has studied. He has learned things. He has sought out strange stuff. And so Gregory keeps asking for this thing, this ointment. And Sir Giles tells him where to go find it.
Crazy place in London. And he goes, and there's this odd doctor? Not a doctor. They call him the Greek. But it's like a drugstore, but in the seedy underbelly of London.
Yeah, it's the chemist shop.
Chemist shop. There we go. And he has a strange back and forth with this Greek man who runs it. And I don't think we ever learned his name. He's
Dimitri.
Oh, excuse me. Dimitri, the Greek.
The Greek.
But they have this, what's the word when you're trying to like say something without saying something?
Yeah, they're sniffing each other out.
Yeah.
This veiled discussion of almost passwords and countersigns.
Like, I'm a buyer. Do you have something for me to buy?
Only for people who are looking to buy.
Yeah, it's really coy. I don't know. It's weird. And it smells weird in there. Or maybe the ointment is what smells weird. It's like cleaner or ammonia. It's just odd, and it's slimy and dirty and dingy. And at the end, Gregory tells the guy, he's like, I have bought everything. The time has come for me to receive. So pompous sounding. But they clearly understand it by the end that they both serve something, and it's something dark. And so this next chapter is called The Sabbath.
And frankly, this isn't what I want to talk much about. So as we said to start, this is a cult. I think some people have heard of things like the Black Sabbath or the Witches' Sabbath or the Dark Sabbath. It is an occult act where he goes out of his own consciousness and is seeking to commune with hell and Satan. I really can't say it any gentler than that. It's dark and he loves it.
It's ritual too. It's weird, the reflection of things that I know about from church that are twisted backwards. We learn more about Gregory here that, yeah, this guy is not playing around with evil. He is seeking it out. He is a willing tool of evil. And that's what this ointment does. It's strange stuff that it accelerates it somehow. But we learn about Gregory's father. So he's the elder Persimmons in this, but his dad, when he was getting old and senile, Gregory learned first with him to mess with people, mess with their minds. And it's gross. He says, he carefully and delicately, to the senile and uneasy mind of his father, suggested that there was a God, but a jealous God. And they have these examples of Judas and Jews in exile and the twisting of stories from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically eliminates hope in the mind of his dying father. It's messed up.
It is totally messed up. Like I say, I refuse to do any research on this chapter. I think it serves the purpose of expressing how dark and evil Gregory is, but it makes me uncomfortable to read it. There is one very important part about this, though, is that when he is undergoing this ritual, there's a limit to how far he can go. And he receives essentially a mission, a task, that he needs one more thing. You get the impression that what got him into this so he could get as far as he could was that he had killed, that it required him to murder somebody to be able to experience what he's experiencing. To go further where he wants to go, he needs another offering, and he chooses Adrian. The innocent little boy is going to be the offering. And again, in the way that Charles Williams flips back and forth perspective, the perspective flips to Adrian's parents. So Barbara is watching Adrian sleeping, and Adrian is twitching. There is a connection that Gregory is making through these dark arts, even here.
And Lionel, very consistent. He expects Adrian's having a bad dream about their vacation. He's not going to like it. He's always thinking negative. So this next chapter is titled Adrian. And what's funny is at this point, I realize how many numbered lists are included in this book.
That's true. There's a bunch of them.
People are always, especially the archdeacon, is like, well, 1, this, 2, that, and 3, that. Like, or first I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, third I'm going to do that. They have a plan and an order to things. There's a lot of them, and they're funny. Because he's thinking through his mind, like, well, is it the Grail? Was it taken? Was it persimmons? What do I do about it? But he numbers them to keep it in order.
1 through 5. There it is.
I have that Gregory and Giles show up. Do they come talk to the archdeacon?
They do, because Gregory has saved him.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, he was in the car. They called the police. They took him to the hospital. He's his neighbor. Gregory is showing concern for the recovery of the archdeacon.
Yeah. And Sir Giles, in his rude jerkman kind of way, asks him how he knows about the paragraph. The Fardel Saint. Like, you shouldn't know about that. It was in the book.
I think he's invited to look at books. Because they go to the house and the archdeacon actually pretends to be sick and runs into the bathroom, and he sees the chalice on the floor in the bathroom. Ludding is there and Gregory is there, and they're like watching, ready to jump him again because they assume he's going to steal it. But the archdeacon just walks out of the room and leaves it there.
And he figures it out because they're talking on the way to look at the books. Clearly, if I had the chalice, I would want it to be where the altar was. And Gregory says, well, that's silly. That would have to go in a bathroom. It's kind of like a bathroom now, but clearly that's where it is.
And doesn't this speak to Gregory Persimmons? So just his desire to desecrate the holy. So Cully, where he's living, it had a chapel in it. And so the altar is the sacred space within this chapel. He's turned it into a washroom. I mean, that's just perfect for the character and what he's trying to do. And he puts the Grail there.
Yeah. They do have the archdeacon is so good at holding up his beliefs without being combative or inflammatory. But they're talking about how we each choose how we know God. And here's a quote. It says, you can defy and deny the air you breathe or the water you drink. But if you do, you die.
Yeah.
But he says it very comfortably. He's like, oh, but then you die. Fair.
Fact.
So I believe the archdeacon heads out, and Gregory's talking about the Grail with Sir Giles, and he says there is power in it, and it's a gate, and you can go either way through a gate. It goes both ways. And at this time, he has a ritual where he basically bonds spiritually with the little boy, with Adrian. Mm-hmm. And he says, know me, thy friend and thy master.
Yeah, and this is another one that is frankly disturbing to read through.
Truly.
Because, so I attend an Anglican church, so I worship in a liturgical fashion every Sunday, and there are elements of that and what he's doing, but they're twisted and perverted and sick. And I know enough Latin to know what he's saying as he goes through this, and again, it's twisted and perverted and sick. So as a literary device, this is masterful because it really does expose the depths that Gregory has gone to and is willing to go to. But as a reader, I find it very uncomfortable.
Agreed. So let's move to Kenneth. I like him much more.
Kenneth! And Fardels. The name of the next chapter is Fardels.
Fardels.
And Fardels is just a fun word to say. Go ahead, try it. Say Fardels.
Fardels.
You'll love it. Yeah.
It would make my son giggle.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kenneth is walking in the rain. He's on pilgrimage and it's raining. And I love this about him. In his mind, he wants to write a story about a man with bad timing. And it starts with a C-section gone wrong because he's lamenting on his timing walking in the rain. But it turns out in his favor. He stomps in a puddle running into this shed to get out of the raid. And he's frustrated and says, why was this bloody world created? And a voice from in the shed says, as a sewer for the stars. Alternatively, to know God and to glorify him forever. Love it.
I underlined that too.
He meets a kindred spirit, another poet. They share the same preferences for authors. George Chapman, I think is the name.
Didn't he translate Homer? Isn't Chapman's Homer one of the great early translations of the Iliad?
I will defer to you on that, brother. I don't know.
Because I think there's another poet who wrote a poem entitled On Reading Chapman's Homer. That's the only way I know that.
Well, they're fans. They nerd out over what's the right word. It starts with a C, so big words that start with C that might fit what they're doing. They're both poets, truly. And Kenneth's like, hey, well, look, I'm a publisher. You should publish something. And the guy says, no, I can't. I have a terrible name to be an author. He says, I am Aubrey Duncan Peregrine Mary Delisle D'Estrange, Duke of the North Riddings, Marquis of Craigmullen and Plessing, Earl and Viscount, Count of the Holy Roman Empire, Knight of the Sword and Cape, and several other ridiculous fantasies.
And Mornington is like, oh, yeah.
That is a problem. He's like, we could be anonymous. Or, oh, no, that won't work.
They bond. They bond.
Yeah, same page. And so the Duke invites Kenneth to come stay. He's like, actually, I'm going to go see my friend, the Archdeacon, first. That's where I'm going. He gets there, and they're talking about the Grail and the deleted paragraph when he gets to the Archdeacon's house. He's like, hey, you should call the police. They stole that from you and hit you on the head. He kind of maybe thinks there's something to this. And the Archdeacon says, no police. What good? What good would that do, basically?
Yeah, he seems to have a real hesitancy to use the secular arm to recover church property. He says that repeatedly through here. I wonder if that was a discussion at the time or an argument about taxpayer money or I don't know. But yeah, he really does not want the police involved.
He is so much about God's will manifesting itself in its time and due course. That's kind of how I took it, where if it's right to happen, it's going to happen anyway, whether or not. You know, and getting the police involved makes it this big publicity, and he knows the other guy's a liar.
The Archdeacon does get some good news in this conversation. So the younger Persimmons is excited to publish the book. All he had to hear was from an archdeacon, and he is in. He's ready to do it. He didn't even bother reading it. Apparently, Stephen has so much kind of fear of his father and so much, he's so into the occult, right? His dad does all this occult stuff that any chance to write something on the other end of the spectrum, he's going to publish it.
Yeah, anything from clergy, yes.
Yeah.
But here's where the two men from the publishing house, so Lionel's vacationing there with his family, and Kenneth is in Fardels visiting the Archdeacon. So they go to tea at the big house, at Coley. And here's where Sir Giles, who's totally just a jerk.
Yeah.
He basically stirs the pot and asks, well, are proofs private or not? Because some archdeacon got to see mine before it was published. I mean, he is very rude about it. And Kenneth is offended. Giles really accuses him harshly of doing something illegal. But yeah, Kenneth really, he takes pride in his work and that offends him.
Mm-hmm. And Gregory is all about twisting in the knife and is, implying and saying, well, I'm sure. But he uses it to really try and get Kenneth to get the archdeacon to keep quiet.
And here, the chalice is no longer the cup. It's no longer in the bathroom. Now it's hiding in plain sight. We learn that Gregory has they call it something, but a history made up for it where he purchased it from a dealer in Ephesus. And he fabricates this story and history documentation of where he got it. And now it's hiding in plain sight on the wall, in this bracket on the wall. And you have a snippet here with Adrian and his mother, and he's talking about his hidden pictures.
Ah, that is a secret game, isn't it, Adrian? And Gregory answered merrily, our secret game, isn't it, Adrian? It's hidden, Adrian said seriously. It's hidden pictures, but you mustn't know what, Mummy, must she? He appealed to Gregory. Certainly not, Gregory said. Certainly not, Adrian repeated. They're my hidden pictures. Children, if an older man asks you to keep a secret, tell your mom and dad.
Immediately.
This is never okay. And it ups the creep factor of Gregory, if that's even possible, because this is not okay.
The next chapter is called The Flight of the Duke of the North Riddings.
I love this chapter.
It's very good.
This was, when I said I was reading this in that coffee house, I think this was the part where my eyes kind of got big.
What just happened?
What just happened? Well, what does happen here?
Well, the inspector shows up because who calls the police? Somebody calls the police about this cup.
Well, it was reported that the archdeacon had been attacked and the church had been vandalized. And so I think it was more that they just couldn't let all that go.
Okay. The inspector, and he has a constable with him, they show up to ask the archdeacon, and the archdeacon is honest. He's like, yep, it was stolen. I had something stolen from me. No, I don't want you to pursue it. And Mornington is cranky because he got accused yesterday of doing illegal things at work and selling out proofs that weren't his to do. And then the Duke of Riddings is there as well to check on Kenneth.
That's right. They're friends.
It's a party. I don't know. The inspector kind of pushes this. He's like, well, we have to do something. An archdeacon was attacked, and archdeacon said, I will come with you, but I really don't want you to pursue it.
Yeah. So I know exactly where the cup is.
And I think it's here Kenneth asks the archdeacon, like, is it really the Grail? Like, are you sure? And he actually tells him, no, I'm not sure, but I have decided in my own mind that I will believe that. No one can possibly do more than decide what to believe. And here we get a Poe reference, an Edgar Allan Poe, the Purloined Letter. The Duke references that these men are so well read. I feel like they had to be poets and publishers for just the number of things he wanted to reference and contextualize the story. Anyway, they all go up to the big house, Coley, and the Duke stays outside to write poetry. And he has a Deus Ex Machina that we talked about in Watership Down.
Yeah, you got it.
It's part of his poetry. But this whole thing is just the dynamic between the different people and characters. And the archdeacon is kind of the only calm one, and he's entertained. He's fairly merry. And he's looking at this cup on the wall. Okay, so the inspector's there. He wants to see the cup. He wants to see the proof of it from Gregory. But the archdeacon, he says, he feels himself part of a moving river flowing towards some narrow channel. And he says, yes, it is the cup. He feels it. He's got some communing going on here.
The archdeacon really lives in this receptive state of prayer where he doesn't know what he's going to do. He just waits, and then he's guided into what he's supposed to do. And so Gregory is loving this whole scene because he has audaciously stolen this cup. He knows it. The archdeacon knows it. He knows the archdeacon knows it. But he's parading this here in front of the law, all these people. He's going through this story, and the archdeacon is just waiting. But then the archdeacon receives his course of action.
A prompting. It moves him to God's will. It says the Grail shudders toward him and he falls towards it. It basically means he snatches it and he runs.
He runs. He just takes it and bolts.
And Kenneth is on his side. So he runs after him too.
Kenneth is the only one that can catch up with him. Fencing is pretty good exercise, so the archdeacon is fit. But Kenneth can catch him, and Kenneth is like, what are we doing here?
Run.
And he opens the door. He opens the gate. The Duke is writing poetry in the car. Kenneth runs up, opens the door. The archdeacon slides in. Kenneth comes in, and they have the Duke just take off. And so the Duke is now driving a getaway car with the archdeacon and Kenneth inside it.
It's funny because it points out that the inspector and Gregory, they try to chase him, but they get winded very quickly. So the inspector yells to his constable, like, stop him, stop him. And it's very unclear who he's supposed to stop. He looks at the archdeacon. That can't be it. Not the Duke. Well, that guy's got nothing. So he assumes it's Gregory. He actually turns to stop Gregory coming
Good
after.
instincts.
Oh,
Good instincts.
he gets in trouble.
I love this line. So through the English roads, the Grail was borne away in the care of a duke, an archdeacon, and a publisher's clerk, pursued by a country householder, the chief constable of a county, and a perplexed policeman. And these things also perhaps the angels desired to look into.
And fortunately, the Duke has a house in London, and he's on board. He and Kenneth really bonded over poetry and literature. So he's on board, and he's like, you have the Grail? The Grail? And so they get to his house because the cars can't outpace each other. And he walks in, and he tells his good man, Thwaites.
I love Thwaites. I love that he's got a man.
He's got a man.
Thwaites. And
I am not
Thwaites
at
is a
home.
brick. I mean, he's ready to help here.
They watch the Duke and these men walk into the house, and Thwaites tells them, the police inspector. I am sorry, sir, but his grace is not at home. Over and over.
Because that's what the Duke told him. And that's all the Duke told him. The Duke, just in passing, I'm not at home, Thwaites. And Thwaites runs with it. And they just can't get through him. It's so good.
So here we're back with the inspector who's looking into the murder investigation. Remember the corpse way back at the beginning? That investigation is still open, not really going anywhere. And he's really annoyed. There's a mention of Aristides, who I kind of looked up. I didn't really know what he meant by it.
He was known for his honesty to the point that he annoyed people.
He's annoyed by the alibis of these people. They're too good.
Yeah, they're too honest. Athenian D. Aristides was actually ostracized for not doing anything bad, but because just his honesty annoyed everyone, near as I can tell. So.
Okay. Well, now there's this policeman from Fardals in town because he doesn't have anywhere to go. They just chased the Duke and these guys from Fardals. But now these cases are colliding because he uses the name Persimmons. And so both policemen are like, I have a Persimmons. And so they don't really know what to do with it. It's not a clear clue, but suddenly these cases start to blend together a little bit. Then back at the house, the Duke and the Archdeacon and Kenneth, they're trying to decide what to do. They're telling the story of the Grail. Why do we even think this is the Grail? And man, they reference a lot of literature. I don't know.
Yes, they do. But the literature they reference is his way of explaining how they all come to this from different levels and different angles. I mean, they're on the same team, but they're not on the same team at the same time. So you have an Anglican priest, you have a Catholic lord, and you have a vaguely Protestant publishing clerk. And so they approach the Grail. They all recognize it as something, but in different ways. We've talked about the Archdeacon's kind of ambivalent attitude towards it, both love of it and also worry that it's going to cause problems. I mean, so that's complex, the way he approaches it. If anything, he probably takes it the least seriously of the three. So Kenneth comes at it from the high fields of literature. He comes at it from Thomas Malory and from Tennyson and from the great poets and writers of the Grail sagas and cycles and epics. And so that's where he comes to it and sees it through. And then you have the Duke, who is a devout Catholic in a land of Protestants. To be a nobleman in England and to be Catholic, that was a hard road to walk for many centuries because many of those got killed. I mean, there was a lot of persecution of Catholics in England after Henry VIII and ongoing. And so he has all that, and then he has all the majesty of Rome and the love of that in him as he's looking at the Grail and what it is. And so they have very different ideas of what to do about it.
Because at this point, though, they decide, okay, got to stand watch. Good man Thwaites. He stands watch. He's the Duke's man. But Kenneth goes to the office. He's going to get evidence. He wants proofs with the paragraph 218 in it. He wants to talk to his boss to hopefully protect his job because he just ticked off the elder Persimmons. And here's one of those triangles where the things happen in threes. Another one of those where it's Gregory in the room, Gregory Persimmons, his son, Stephen Persimmons, and Kenneth Mornington. Mm-hmm. And at this point, Kenneth gets mad because Gregory's just manipulating him, threatening his job. And then when he gets mad, though, he realizes that Gregory likes it. It's too much. It's too close to where Gregory is already. And the Archdeacon tells Kenneth later, we must be careful not to get like him. That actually goes down a path towards darkness. That's where Gregory is. That's where he's comfortable and wants others to join him. They take offense because Gregory insults Jesus. Mm-hmm. And the Archdeacon, I can't say he laughs at it, but he dismisses it. He says, how can you insult God? About as much as you can pull his nose.
Right. Yeah, it's not your job to defend that honor. It's your job to do the right thing.
They're marveling at the Grail, and for them, it seems to shine and expand. I mean, it's beautiful, and they're talking about the symbolism of it, the symbolism of 1,000 tales, and here they're marveling, and they're going to stand watch. I like this. They're going to create an order. An order of the watching of the Grail.
And they're kind of quibbling about it.
Yeah.
Like, the Archdeacon thinks it's ridiculous. Like, all right, fine, but if we're going to do it, I'll take the worst watch. Yeah. I mean, he is such a great guy. He's like, I'll take the middle of the night kind of thing.
Yeah, and he doesn't explain it's the worst one. That is his automatic. It is his role to do, and he will do it. But as they're heading to bed, he looks at the Grail and it almost starts to blur. And he goes and touches it and it's almost soft. And he realizes there is something bad happening here. And he tells them that they are praying against him tonight. And we are to pray in the name of God.
Because the Duke asks, what can they do, right, as this is happening? And that's the Archdeacon's answer. Pray. The Archdeacon cried out, pray in the name of God. They are praying against him tonight. And they do. They pray and they pray and they pray. And the book is called War in Heaven. And this is a battle of that war.
In this, again, there's 3 men. They are praying together. And it's funny, each one has their own detractors. So for Kenneth, he gets kind of taunted. He feels taunted, like something's egging him on. The Duke keeps getting distracted, like something's moving over there, like I should look over there. There are these distractions of anger and different things trying to distract them from their prayer and focus on this cup and praying for the will of God. But it says the Archdeacon kind of guides them along. He has the most practice at this. He is the best at it because prayer, I mean, it is a muscle, right? We get better at it as we learn to pray. And so together they win. The Grail basically reconstitutes and they're very exhausted. But the idea was that they would stand watch, but the Archdeacon says, no, it's safe for now. We've done the work. The Grail will guard itself tonight.
Yeah, isn't that a great line? The next chapter, again, this gets dizzying as we're going back and forth between the different points of view, because this one we even have a little bit of a time jump back, because in the next chapter we learn that in the same way that there were 3 praying for the Grail, there were 3 praying against the Grail. So we've already met Dimitri, the Greek. We now meet a Jew named Manasseh. And so Manasseh, Dimitri, and Gregory are the 3 kind of working together, and they each have their own kind of take. There are different stages on their hellish journey. Gregory is very much about power, about control and power and dominance. Manasseh thinks that's ridiculous. He says, no, control is an illusion, power is an illusion. What we want is destruction. We want to destroy. And Dimitri, who seems to be the oldest, the deepest of the 3, he says, no, even that's an illusion. What we want is rejection. Everything needs to be rejected and turned aside. And it's depressing reading these people. I mean, they are not happy men. The important part about this chapter is we get to meet somebody new. In this chapter, we get to meet a foreign-appearing gentleman in a gray suit.
A young man in a gray suit who looks different to everyone. Different people who see them, they all think he looks different. Some think he's foreign, some think he's old, some think he has an accent, or all different perceptions of this guy. But he makes bad guys angry.
Yeah.
Gregory's henchman is around. He's irrationally angry at this man. And they ask him a little bit about himself. He says, well, I've been a traveler. That's it. He's a mystery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he's talking to everyone and kind of going where he wants. I mean, he talks with Gregory in this chapter, and he makes Gregory mad. I mean, Gregory is furious. He says, but I love this. He says, my servant shall throw you out, Gregory cried. I do not allow trespassers. And he responds, you have no servants, the other said. You have only slaves and shadows, and only slaves can trespass, and they only among shadows. I mean, he's not putting up with Gregory, but he's calm. At no point does he get worked up. He's always calm through this one.
Yeah, they ask him why he's there because he's at Coley. And he tells Gregory, I am studying the map and I find this center marked on it. Gregory yells at him. They have a long argument kind of, but this guy says, I have not entered your house, for the time is not yet. But it is not that which you should fear. It is the day when you shall enter mine. And he does say, my name is John.
Name is John. And he makes other strange statements in this chapter. 70 kings have eaten at my table, the stranger said. You say well, for I myself am king and priest and sib to all priests and kings. What does that mean?
Big old mystery. And Gregory's just angry, but he can't touch him. This young man in a gray suit just walks away from them. It's strange.
Yeah. This man has power of a kind. And the way people react to him is fascinating.
Yeah.
That people react to him strongly.
Yeah, but Gregory resets because he has to go talk to Adrian.
Yeah.
And he tells him that he has a new train for him. He's a little boy, he loves playing with his train sets. And so he invites the family into tea. Okay, so the little boy and his mom and dad come in to tea. And this train acts funny, and he has Barbara, the mom, hold it for him. And this truly is despicable. He cuts her.
There's like a metal spur on it coming out, and he moves it and does a big old gash on her arm.
Yeah, he cuts her down the arm, and she's bleeding, but this is a very sweet woman. She assumes it's an accident, and it's okay. But he's like, no, let me help. I have this ointment that will fix you. He takes that evil, truly evil ointment that he used to have this terrible seance, and he wipes it on this hurt of this woman's body. And it's not immediate, so nobody can point fingers at Gregory, but she goes berserk. She is ill. She goes crazy. She's screaming. I mean, it is sad and horrible. And poor Lionel, who always thinks the worst is going to happen. This is even worse than what he thought could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she rips off her clothes and starts dancing in this weird way while screaming
She's
and
in
yelling, and it is just hideous.
The doctor has no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's messed up.
Yeah, we've talked a lot of scenes in this book that are really well done literary devices, but are not comfortable reading, and this is near the top of that list.
Gregory removes Adrian. Honestly, he uses it to pull the boy closer to him. He has a nurse who Adrian adores and takes care of him, but he doesn't even know what this ointment will do to this woman. She wasn't using it with purpose or intention, and he kind of delights in not knowing, just seeing what toy. You said he loves power, also manipulation, like just messing with people.
Mm-hmm.
So he's delighting seeing what's going to happen. It's gross.
Yeah.
And here, while his mom is suffering, Adrian is asked to look at some more hidden pictures because Gregory was made uncomfortable by that young man in the gray suit. And somehow Adrian can see the pictures. It's weird. I don't get it.
Yeah, he's using him as like a medium. They don't have the Grail anymore, so he's using this other disc thing. Again, these are not things I wish to look into. But he's using Adrian, and he says, "Show me that man." And Adrian sees him, but he doesn't see him as a guy in a gray suit. He sees him as a ruler wearing a crown and people bowing to him. He sees him into this great beauty of riches and wealth and gold with churches everywhere. This makes Gregory uncomfortable, and he discreetly shuts the game down because he just doesn't want to see anymore.
So yeah, we still don't know who he is either. In this story, I had no idea who he was until he actually says his full name. Did you know when you read it?
No.
Yeah, it's very mysterious. So this next chapter is called The Third Attempt on the Grail. And we start with Lionel. So Barbara's finally quiet. She's not comfortable, but she's at least quiet. She's not going berserk anymore. And it's night. And he's thinking about practicalities. What's he going to do about money? What's he going to do with his son? His wife, is she going to live? Like, what do I do here? His beloved was destroyed, and the home of his repose broken open by the malice of invisible powers.
Yeah, I kind of love this conversation with him and Gregory, though.
I do too.
Because Gregory he sees this as manipulation. He loves manipulation. He thinks he's got Lionel figured out. Lionel is broken. Well, maybe he can step in. Gregory is a religious man in a dark sense, but he believes, and maybe there's a convert here. So he starts talking about evil and cruelty and malice and sin and the delights of them, the joy of them, the delights of them. Lionel, though, is a pessimist. He doesn't believe there's delight or joy in any of that, in the same way he doesn't believe there's light and joy in anything. And in this way, it almost protects him against this. So this is Gregory speaking. I mean, they're talking about like Judas and all these. He says, but, he said doubtfully, had Judas himself no delight? There is an old story that there is rapture in the worship of treachery and malice and cruelty and sin. And Lionel's response is so good. Pooh, Lionel said contemptuously. It is the ordinary purgatory religion disguised. It is the church-going clerk's religion. Satanism is the clerk at the brothel. Audacious little middle-class cock sparrow. This makes Gregory mad because he has great thoughts of who he is, right? This being of power and authority that will be able to take control. The clerk at a brothel. You're just nothing. And Lionel is doing this backhanded. I mean, he's not engaged in this, but there is no temptation from what Gregory is offering him here. And this cuts Gregory pretty deep, and it's great.
He's very nettled, yeah. And I mean, even on a normal day, Lionel's just way past that in terms of his fear. I mean, his religion is more fear than anything else at this point. And so, delighting in evil is as distasteful to him as delighting in good. He just can't approach it. I mean, to him, it's the flip side of the same coin. That's really what he meant by it, where, yep, they're both kind of the same, where you're trying to get something positive out of them. But no, he's just bleak. He's protected by his bleakness. What a weird twist there.
It's strange, but it's interesting to me. This is the third attempt on the Grail. The first one was just open deception. The second one was to attempt to spiritually, supernaturally unmake it. This one is quite a bit more scheming. So this is why he put the ointment on Barbara's arm, was he tells Lionel, hey, I know a guy that can save her. I think. Not 100%, but I've never known him to fail where doctors don't, and he can do things that regular doctors can't. But he's kind of a jerk. He's sort of a mean guy. He's got his price, and his price is this cup. The archdeacon won't give it to me. He thinks I've, stolen it and everything, but he might give it to you. And so this is the way he's going to try and get the Grail back.
And Lionel's desperate to help his wife. He calls Kenneth and begs for this cup. Like, you don't really need it, do you? He's not. He just wants to help his wife. And the Duke says no. He's like, what's a woman's life or any of our lives compared to this? I mean, it's the Holy Grail. He wants to see this thing stationed in Rome and presented to the Pope. I mean, this is a big deal to him. But the archdeacon basically says all things are according to God's will. So we're going to go down. We're going to take the cup. They don't really have a plan, I think, when they go. But Kenneth asks a question. I mean, it's a big question where if all things are according to the will of God. I mean, this is a big people question. He wills evil then? God wills evil then? And again, the archdeacon is phenomenal at responding. Did you know this verse? It's from the Bible. It's from Amos. I looked it up because I wanted to know what came after it. After Kenneth asks if God wills evil, archdeacon says, shall there be evil in the city and I, the Lord, not have done it? The next verse, though, is surely the Lord God will do nothing. He revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. It's very interesting.
That's
Again,
good.
He didn't inflame the situation, but he responded and responded well. These are things, pretty much anything the archdeacon says is worth thinking about.
I would agree with you very much on that.
So they go to Fardell's and the rest will sort itself out.
That's right. That's the plan. He's going to wait. He's going to wait for his instruction. I think there's also a conversation here with Sir Giles and Gregory, where Gregory tells him about this foreigner that's showing up in a gray suit that, nearly made Ludding crazy and that he didn't like either. And Giles all of a sudden starts to act nervous and basically says, you don't know what you're dealing with, Gregory. I'm going to bail. But you get this sense that Giles knows what he's dealing with. When he said he's a priest and a king, that combination really tickled something in Sir Giles' brain, and he's about ready to bail. He's about ready to go. So somebody has an idea of who this foreigner is that's been showing up.
The man who did research on sacred vessels.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the archdeacon and the Duke and Kenneth arrive at Cully, and Barbara is still quiet but in agony. They don't know if she'll live. The other person who shows up is this weird doctor. It is the Jew named Manasseh from the chemist shop. He is the strange doctor, the one who demands the cup as his only price. There's nothing else will do. And in the meanwhile, while they're quibbling about the cup and we're not going to give it to you. How can you even help her? That kind of discussion. Gregory goes and he messes with her cut.
Mm-hmm.
He runs his finger down her arm with that ointment. And while she'd been quiet, this kicks it all back up. And she is screaming, the edge, I can't stop. And she's hurtling forward. And here's a quote. And then at the very height of the agonizing moment, when it seemed that some immediate destruction must rend her whole being, all of a sudden her voice faltered and stopped, and in one long, gentle movement, seemed to collapse towards the floor. She goes from complete tension and agony towards the edge of something inside her own mind to this gentle collapse on the floor, and is suddenly breathing peacefully, seemingly comfortable. The agony is done. But the weird doctor, gets to her first.
Yeah, he kind of tries to hide this. He runs to her during this and gets there close enough to pretend like he did something. And so then he starts talking like doctors do, give her this every so often at these times and do these things, and starts giving instructions. And then the archdeacon hands over the Grail.
The Duke's annoyed because they never agreed to do that. And he's like, you just gave it to them? Well, I don't know. Maybe he helped her. Archdeacon couldn't see it, turns out. But it was the price. And again, he doesn't attach the same importance to it.
Yeah, and he doesn't feel like it's his duty to defend it.
Yeah.
At least not yet. He hasn't been told that. It's the Grail will look after itself, right? If this is God's will be done. And his job is to just be in alignment with that, whatever God's will is.
The exception was the prayer. When it was dissolving in front of him, that was the one time he really seems to have felt that prompting, according to God's will, to pray and protect the cup. The rest of the time, not so much.
Yeah. But even that wasn't him doing anything.
Yeah.
It was praying for God to protect the cup, for God to do his will through it. And so he's a very consistent character, I think, throughout this.
Yeah, and this is Kenneth's observation about Barbara, that he says, it was as if she found everything all right, even on the very edge of the pit. That was the moment. She had to get all the way up to the edge and then found all was well. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so here, you were right. Sir Giles, he's headed out. He does not like the mysterious stranger. And we don't know exactly who he thinks he is, but he's heard things about the priest king, something in his studies. But here's where he says, I don't know whether the Grail belongs to him or he belongs to the Grail. But he is always part of the story in his research about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's running. And he's at the train station, I believe.
Conversations of the Young Man in Gray. We are to chapter 13, and this is a wonderful chapter because this young man starts talking with different people, and it begins with his conversation with Sir Giles as he's running away to the train station.
I wrote down that the young man in gray, John, says, I like to watch you running. That's creepy.
Well, and it bugs Sir Giles. I am not running, Sir Giles almost shouted. I was going today anyhow, and I have told Persimmons 1,000 times I won't be dragged into his Boxing Day glee parties. And anyhow, he's getting a bore. Haven't I met you before? For all these guys, there's this sense that they've met him before, but they often can't place it. And this is where the reveal happens. Sir Giles' overpowering curiosity, freed from other desires, thrust him forward. And who are you? I will tell you if you like, the stranger said, smiling, for at least you are really curious. I am Prester John. I am the Grail and the keeper of the Grail. All enchantment has been stolen from me, and to me the vessel itself shall return.
He also curses Sir Giles. Curses is wrong. He declares his destiny. He basically tells him, you are going to be an ant scrabbling around on the inside of the Grail. You're never going to get traction. You're small, you're insignificant. And that, I think, is the running. I like to watch you running because he chose this for himself. He's always going to be small and inside the Grail. Never enough to procure it, to seize it, to do anything with it. He has no power, but he's always going to be in it. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Prester John.
Prester John.
I remember reading this the first time and thought, who's that? And then you were shocked I didn't know. Where did you learn of Prester John?
I got to admit, it was probably rude of me to be shocked you didn't know, because I think I learned about him from this book. I think I read this and then said, who's that? And started doing some research. And so Prester
good, I feel
John,
better.
yeah, no, it's no one that I think really anyone would know these days. And when you start doing research on him, there's only so much there. Really popular in the Middle Ages is, I think, the best way to think about him. So near as I can tell, again, not an expert, just an enthusiast, I believe that Prester John first came forward in the year 1165. There was a forged letter, presumably from a Prester John in the East, sent to the Byzantine Emperor Manuel Comnenus. And this forged letter has been sent around, and so it was widely available and widely read in the West. Like a lot of these letters, it then got developed and elaborated on, and it became a thing with the idea of this great Christian king in the East who was going to come and help, who lived in wealth and riches and military power, but who could help the West at this time where the Muslim invasions were taking nation after nation, culture after culture, country after country. They needed help, and it was believed it could be there in the East.
So like I said, there's so many literary references in this. I started to dabble into Prester John to try to come up with a semblance of references of him, and it's so big. It's another one of those big things where there's just stories over time. The one I wanted to mention is apparently he's referenced in a letter from Marco Polo. Is that what you brought?
I did. So I pulled off my bookshelf a couple of the books. Marco Polo, of course, was that Italian traveler to the courts of Kublai Khan in the East. He wrote somewhere in the 13th century, the dates I came across, his life, we think 1254 to 1324. And yeah, he basically described him as a ruler out in the East. This is from chapter 46 in the Travels of Marco Polo. Now it came to pass that the Tartars multiplied exceedingly, and when Prester John saw how great a people they had become, he began to fear that he should have trouble from them. So we hear him as sort of this ruler out east of Tartary, a king of great power and great wealth. He's mentioned just a few times in here. A lot of what he's mentioned as, I believe, are in relation to Genghis Khan. So in these letters, it says that Genghis Khan asked for a wife of the daughter of Prester John, and Prester John refused, and so they ended up going to war. And you just don't win in war against Genghis Khan, even if you're Prester John. And so that's the Marco Polo tale. Not much, but it's in there.
So how or why, or do you know, is Prester John and the Grail intermingled?
I don't think they were historically.
So that's from this story.
I think that is from this story. I would be open to correction on this, but I'm not aware of any connection between the two. The Grail legend usually traces its way through Joseph of Arimathea, usually to England, usually through Glastonbury, whereas Prester John is almost always initially very much a king in the East. So in Marco Polo, he's described in that. In the letter to Manuel, he's described in that. And in the travels of Sir John Mandeville, he's described as a wealthy king in the East as well. Later, once people started searching through the East and realizing, hey, there's no great Christian kingdom here, somebody remembered, oh, but there are great Christian kingdoms in Africa that we don't have much contact with. And so there was some thought that he was actually out of Africa, much to the annoyance of the African Christians, as I understand. People kept asking them to call their king Prester John, and they're like, we don't have a king Prester John. That's not a thing. But anyway, I do not know of connections with the Grail until this book.
Prester, is that some basis of Latin? So like pater or
basically
something?
Means priest.
Priest John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hence the priest and king.
Yeah, and the little I know about Prester John always have reminded me of Arthur. And I mean, maybe that's where the parallel comes into this, where he took it as an Eastern Arthur.
To
tie it with the Grail. I don't know. spitballing. I have no idea.
Yeah, your theory is as good as any I've got. I love that Charles Williams did this, but I can't explain it. I don't know where that connection came other than that he thought it would be cool, maybe?
I mean, he speaks later more about himself. And if he is the Grail, it's almost a precursor of Christ, a voice calling in the wilderness, another John. So I don't know how many layers there are to it or not, like nested inside of that, because he is almost salvific inside of this, and he knows people's. He just read Sir Giles' future kind of as a parable, but he's a really interesting character. Again, he remains mysterious, even though we now know his name and more about him.
And the ending of the book, this is kind of that, because we're getting near the end here. This is the kind of the steep descent towards the end. And this was that whiplash experience I felt the first time I read this. And I think this is mysticism. This is Charles Williams' mysticism, which for people who have a taste for that or who have an into that is wonderful. I mean, C.S. Lewis loved it, but Tolkien didn't care for it so much. I mean, the mysticism is something that kind of like A Wrinkle in Time, where we were talking about you have to kind of take it all at once. You can't necessarily go line by line and understand it. You got to take the whole picture. That's kind of the way I feel about a lot of these passages here towards the end.
Yeah. So he continues having interactions. He goes and sees the man helping, the clergyman helping the archdeacon. His name is Mr. Batesby. I hadn't mentioned him yet because there are a lot of characters. And he's just kind of silly. He's full of parables and isms that don't quite make the point he means to. I mean, he's kind of silly. He's
got all these plans for the reunion of all the Christian churches that don't really make sense. He kind of annoys the archdeacon a little bit, but the archdeacon tries to hide it and be gracious towards him.
Yeah, but he is telling story, kind of prompted by Prester John. Oh, he tells a story about a man who is always afraid, and the police inspector shows up, and Prester John kind of prompts this story, and the clergyman says, yeah, I loaned him some specific books to help with that. And he sent me a letter back, turns out. And the inspector, the policeman is like, well, do you have it? And he finds this letter.
The policeman, who has had no leads on all this stuff, now gets this letter. Reverend Sir, I return you your books, which you very kindly lent me. I have no doubt they're quite right, but they don't seem to mean the precious blood. They don't help me when the devil comes. He'll kill me one day, but my blessed Savior will have me then, I know. But I daren't think of it. I hope it won't hurt much. It's quite right. I'm not grumbling. I've asked for it all, and Jesus will save me at last. Thank you for the books which I return herewith. I have not read them both all as I'm rather worried. I am, Reverend Sir, yours faithfully, James Montgomery Pattison.
And there's a reference to a Wesleyan church. And there is also an address. So finally, this inspector has some kind of lead. And it's funny because the address is right around the corner from his house.
Yes, right by him.
The guy who said, hey, be vigilant and watch, it's around the corner from his house. He knows the lady who rents the room where this guy was staying. It's funny. So Prester John's a busy guy. Because next he goes and visits with Kenneth and the Duke, because they're going to check on Barbara. She was just near death's door in this paralysis and agony mix. I mean, it's strange. So they go look in on her.
Yeah, there's this series of conversations he has with each of these individuals. I think he might meet Barbara first.
They're all
because
together.
They're all together. But Barbara sees him and knows him and knows that he was there.
She's describing, because Kenneth asks her, like, what happened? Did the doctor help you? Because they lost the cup to this guy. They're annoyed. But he is happy to see her looking well. And she's saying, I can't help you. I don't really remember it. There were just things in my mind that weren't of my mind. I mean, they were just beyond her. They were evil in her mind and consciousness. But then it says at that edge, it was just being swallowed up by peace. And she says, oh, joy, I knew him at once. And then when Prester John walks up, she sees him and she says, oh, joy. And she knows him. And then, oh, thinks maybe not, but I know you, right? Like, it's this funny back and forth because they're all It's clearly I've met you. So church? And he's like, yeah, it was definitely at church.
Yeah,
Got that right.
And with all of them, he has, he talks to them all, but with all of them, he has what I believe to be kind of a parting message. In the same way with Sir Giles, where he was able to communicate to him, here's what to expect, buddy. Right? He has that for everyone he meets. And I'll be interested if you took the same ones as I did, because with Barbara, I think the ultimate message he gave her at the end was the gates of hell have no more power over you.
You've been saved.
I think in his messages, we also learned about the individuals. So Lionel Rackstraw, right, our pessimist, our guy who believes that nothing is good, who is able to down this disciple of darkness with pessimism, he has a line for him. To me, the line that I got was, believe certainly that this universe also carries its salvation in its heart. I think he gave him a message of hope to this extreme pessimist. Then the next one, the Duke, because you have loved the thing that is mine, this also shall save you in the end.
I add to that too. You shall keep vigil and prayer till the master of the Grail shall come.
Good.
Both of those are for the Duke. You shall keep vigil and prayer.
And then to Mornington.
Oh, I get chills.
Surely I come quickly. Tonight thou shalt be with me in paradise. Oh, so.
And Barbara reacts with joy. Like,
yes.
Oh, Kenneth, like, I'm so happy for you.
So to those who aren't familiar with the biblical passages being alluded to here, the surely I come quickly is the return of Christ, where he speaks about his return. So the surely I come quickly here line is that Mornington will meet his God, and quickly. And then the following line, tonight thou shalt be with me in paradise, are the words of Christ on the cross to the thief who supported him on the cross, as opposed to the one who railed against him. And he was promised paradise that day. And these are the lines being told to Mornington.
And Prester John has one more interaction described here, where that evening he meets with the archdeacon. And this interaction is particularly special because they don't even speak directly, I don't think. It's more of a connection. But John tells the archdeacon, I am John and Galahad and Mary, precursor of the things that are to be, keeper of the Grail. And he tells the archdeacon that you shall see the end of all these things. Only be strong and of good courage.
Only be strong and of good courage. That was the message to Joshua. I mean, that's the message throughout the Old Testament. Be strong and of good courage. And usually when a task was about to be asked of somebody.
And the archdeacon's response is just understanding. He's receptive. He knows that this is of his Lord, of God's will. Be strong and of good courage. Keep that in mind in upcoming chapters.
Because,
yeah, it is the steep descent. The next chapter is called The Bible of Mrs. Hippie. It's so random, the jumps, but I say random, but it's so cohesive in how it's done. It's brilliant, truly brilliant. So that police inspector who got the name of the border, James Pattison, he's thinking through this case and he realizes he hasn't really done much, the inspector, but he feels like life is solving this problem for him just through natural processes. So he's kind of learning to wait and to follow. So he goes and talks to his neighbor, Mrs. Hippie. Yeah. She's hilarious. She's trying to come up with puns and riddles for a contest. Yes. She's not very good at it. One is, she asks him, why does the shoe lace? Because the button holes. You're like, that's not funny.
I read that like 4 times trying to figure out if I missed something. I'm glad to hear I didn't. Okay.
No, it's not good.
I feel better now.
I don't think she'll win. But she's very focused on these puzzles. That's her thing. But he asks about this renter. And she says, yep, he was here. I know that guy. He even scribbled in my mother's Bible. Very rude. But he left for Canada.
For Canada. It really annoys her how much scribbling he did.
Yeah. And the inspector, well, can I see the Bible? And She lets him take it and scribbled all over with fragmentary prayers, ejaculations, and even texts. And interesting, the things that are called out. I think it's at the end of Job. Here's the Job reference where he says, "He won't let me go and Jesus won't get me away," which is ominous. But there's clues throughout, but nothing clear to hook this man to the body at the office, the publisher's office. But at the end of the book, in very clear letters, it says, Mr. Gregory Persimmons Coley.
Neighbor Fartles, Hertfordshire. So it gives him the name, the title, the address. And above that, it says in this book, he is going to kill me. It is in his eyes and his face. He gives the name, he gives the address, and he predicts his death at the hands of Gregory Persimmons.
Next, we shift back to Kenneth and the Duke. And they heard the doctor's address the other day when the archdeacon was speaking to him. So they know it's in London and they have a specific address. So they go looking for the cup. They want it. They don't like that they got tricked out of it, and they go seeking it. And then there's also this piece where Gregory and Manasseh and Dimitri, they're making these grand, evil, terrible plans, and they're talking about going east and bringing Adrian as the oblation, right? The sacrifice. And it's really dark, but Gregory has a great idea. They're going to attach the soul of the man he murdered to the archdeacon. They're going to haunt him.
Yeah, because, and they say, well, that's impossible unless you have a soul that is ready, that you have control. Oh, wait, you do. Unless you have a victim, well, I guess you've picked one. And unless you have an object of great power, oh, we can do it.
Yeah.
And so they plan to do it.
And it's at this time that Kenneth and the Duke show up. And they come out armed. They're expecting a fight. And the Duke says, "Hey, be careful. Hell is close." And I love Kenneth's response. He's like, "You can't expect me to think much of hell if Gregory is one of its kings."
Poor showing.
But you mentioned Dimitri, the Greek. He, by far, I mean, he is devoid of hope. He is this vacuum of despair by choice, but he also has the most power. And he rolls back the rug, and there's a diagram that clearly has some power to it. And he powers it up where anyone who crosses it will be destroyed. And Kenneth crosses a line. And he doesn't just die. He withers away to dust. I mean, it is described, and I don't want to focus on it. What's interesting, though, is that Gregory Persimmons is sickened by this. He's nauseous. He hates it.
Because he sees, not for any pity for the guy that's dead.
No.
It's that he sees the face of Dimitri. Dimitri has made it as far as he's concerned. He's at a higher or a lower level of power, right? He has what Gregory wants, the ability to kill on command. And he sees the face, and there's no joy.
No.
There's no rapture. It's death, it's sickness, it's madness. And that is the reward of this power, to be that. And yeah, it rattles him. It's the first thing I guess we've seen a couple things rattle him, right? We've seen
and the archdeacon.
And the man in the gray suit, right? Shadows and slaves. And so we start to see that Gregory, all along we know that he's not experienced as these other worshipers. And we start to see that a little bit here as he starts to realize what he's really getting himself into.
Well, and I think that's part, those other people who didn't see the desire in this, who don't want the power, that there's people who achieve joy and power and abilities separate from this, they did rattle him. And so now to see that there's nothing good, no hope, no satisfaction in this hell, literal hell he's putting himself through, like, this is it. So that is a switch. But the Duke remains there, and it says he's defeated in mind and body. He doesn't cross the line, though, so he's still alive. And I think this is his vigil and prayer time that Pastor John had mentioned. It will be your role to keep vigil.
I think you're right.
But it's gross. They write with his hand.
Yeah, they possess him physically.
To write with his handwriting to make the archdeacon come.
Come here if you can by any means, the letter ran. For that and we are here. The bearer of this will tell you as much as he will, but believe him if he says that without you there is an end to all writings. And then they ask who will carry this message. Gregory. Gregory is tasked as the errand boy. This man who desires only power is to take this message to Fartles.
And so now we jump back to the police. So this is called the search for the house.
I love this. And I love that he interposes these kind of funny things because there's some dark. That was dark, that chapter. Dark. But this is funny. They can't find the house.
It's lost in a fog. And they literally feel the corner of the house here and the house there, and it is gone, completely gone. I love the inspector's point of view here, though, because he's thinking through this case, and it says how basically he separates everybody in the world between police, criminals, and everybody else. And isn't that a thing that we do? We all contextualize the world in the sense of our own experience. But he gives other examples. So doctors, patients, and potential patients.
Yeah.
There's poets, readers, and non-readers. He says explorers and stay-at-home people. They just all have their different contextual. I mean, it's all the same groups of people, and yet your own contextualization shifts who they are. It's very funny.
But this chapter, I mean, it's several pages of them hunting for the house and doing all this. But again, this whiplash, because this chapter ends and, spoiler, a strange man was standing in front of him. Behind him, the windows of a chemist shop came abruptly into being. The stranger came up to him. I am Gregory Persimmons, he said, and I wish to give myself up to the police for murder. What?
And it's actually Gregory Persimmons.
What? This guy, he was just doing this thing. And
what just happened?
And he's giving it. What happened? Well, in the next chapter, we learn.
That to me is like the beginning line of the book where it just conveys so much without answering any questions at all. You just have more questions. Yeah. Gregory just confessed to the police directly. So this last one is called The Marriage of the Living and the Dead. And that message to the archdeacon, they need him because of Gregory's grand evil plan to haunt him forever with the soul of this man that he's already murdered. Okay, it's gross. They have the Grail. It is a structure of power, and they have learned to wield that.
Yeah, so Gregory goes, gives the message, and the archdeacon's going to come. I mean, he knows that's what he needs to do to come. I do love that when Gregory meets him, the archdeacon is reading the revelations of Lady Julian. We've talked about the Lady Julian before, and we'll talk about her again. She's my favorite mystic, so archdeacon is reading her works.
And he has a numbered list. He responds to Gregory with a number. If it's true, you already know. 2, you probably wrote it. I like it as a communication element. It's very funny. But he's also, it says he's also pondering things in his heart. That is a reference to Mary. That's what she does in the Bible, pondering these things in her heart. He too ponders these things in his heart. This is where we look back at Gregory and he realizes that there's 2 or 3 people now who haven't desired the same things he does and who seem better for it and who've kind of rocked him a little bit. And he gets a glimpse of the unchanging serenity of sky. True peace, true power. And I think it makes some reference to the flames of his Sabbath. They're so small in comparison. They're nothing in comparison to the unchanging serenity of the sky above him. He sees a glimpse.
Yeah, and the archdeacon certainly portrays that serenity. When he shows up, the Greek asks him, do you know why you have come here? And his answer is great. He says, I have come because God willed it. The archdeacon said, why did you send for me? So he's there because it's the will of God, not because he was sent for. But he does wonder why they sent for him.
And it's terrible. It's another one of those times where they are directing evil towards him. And it says that habit that he's established, his sustaining power of being peaceful and waiting on the will of God, that kind of trickles out of him slowly. And I don't think that's because of what they're doing to him. It reminded me of Jesus on the cross. Why, God, have you forsaken me? But he says, this also is thou.
Yeah. Have you read The Dark Night of the Soul?
No, it's on my piano.
Yeah, so St. John of the Cross, that's where my brain went with this. And I can't remember which one of Lewis's books. I think it's Screwtape Letters, where he says that God sometimes lets his special favorites go through darker and drier periods than any others. And so that's, all that I think came into here. The archdeacon is there out of obedience to the will of God, and he is offering himself essentially as a sacrifice at this point.
And they make him lie down, and they're doing this ritual upon him, and it is dark, but he's aware of someone else in the room, and it says there's both night and blood, and they beat like a heartbeat in the cup. I mean, it is messed up. But then,
do you remember watching Forrest Gump, where Lieutenant Dan is like, railing at God, and then Forrest responds, and then God showed up. God shows up here, but he does it through the Grail. Yeah. He does it through the presence of the Grail and through Prester John. And Prester John shows up and says, essentially, you wanted the Grail, here I am.
That's the thing. They weren't fully in it before. They were dabbling outside. They were talking about it. They were consumed by the idea of it. But when you fully enter, suddenly from the Grail, there broke a terrific and golden light. Blast upon blast of trumpets shook the air. The Grail blazed with fiery tumult before them, and it awoke in its own triumphant and blinding power.
It's amazing. We talked about Deus Ex Machina. Here it is, right? The archdeacon doesn't jump up and start punching people or anything. Just the power of God here steps in and essentially gives people what they want, right? So Dimitri and Manasseh start groveling on the floor. Remember, Manasseh wanted destruction. You got it. He is destroyed. Dimitri wanted rejection of all things. You got it. You are rejected from all things. But it's interesting that Gregory wanted something too. He didn't just want himself. He was a servant in his own way, twisted and dark as it was. And Prester John gives him an out. He offers him essentially life for life isn't quite the way of thinking about it, but he basically allows him to engage his conscience again. And what we learn at the end of the last chapter, that worked.
Yeah, he says, you go confess, and you will be hanged, but then you will be with me.
Yeah.
And that other someone who the archdeacon had sensed while it was still in darkness, that other soul, it was the soul of the man that Gregory had murdered, and he was terrified too. Mm-hmm. But here it says that he had the face of joy.
Yeah.
And the archdeacon, his mercy endureth forever.
His mercy endureth forever. It just hits you when you read this. I mean, we're going through this and we're telling the plot points and the beats, but again, the way he has constructed this, it just rolled over me. The first time I read this, I had no idea what I was reading, but I knew it was big. And in reading this to try and talk through it, I've read this chapter several times now, and I still don't feel like I fully understand it. It's amazing.
It's because it's huge. I mean, I don't know William's specific beliefs, but clearly he had the idea of God as not just love, but also of perfect justice, right? Mercy and judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. I read that somewhere. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's in James, I should say. But it's also, I mean, you mess with these things, these powers, and they're not safe. But like Barbara, when she got up to that edge, and she was in agony up until that edge, once you crossed into the heart of the Grail or into the heart of Christ, I mean, we still haven't talked as much about the Eucharist, because that in itself is such a blessing and communion and tradition. But with salvation, it's not a pit. You are then at peace. Mm-hmm. You know, when you come at it rightly. Mm-hmm. And for those who were looking for the pit, they got it.
Yeah, it's another C.S. Lewis line, right? So ultimately, there are only two kinds of people in this world: those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "Thy will be done." Yeah. And I mean, that's chilling. But what an incredible demonstration of that. Now, that's not the last chapter. There's one more chapter simply titled Castra Pavlorum. And let's remember, that's fartles. This is the camp of the children. This is the fort of the innocent, of the unimportant. And at this place, a Eucharist is held. And it's the Eucharist that is held, officiated by Prester John for all the people here. And they all get to engage in it with the cup, with the Grail, and they get to basically step into the heavenly throne room to participate in this worship. Those of us who participate and appreciate liturgical worship, that's what we believe we do every time we do it. And the archdeacon definitely believes that. So every time he's raised the cup, not the Grail, but the cup that holds the blood of Christ, for him, he's always been stepping into the throne room of God. And here they get to do it together. And this is a direct parallel to what we see in the Grail stories, particularly in Le Morte d'Arthur, where Galahad, Percival, and Bors are able to take communion from the vessel. And it is Galahad, this is the culmination and summation of his existence. And after this, he goes to be with the Lord. Bors is actually a married man and goes back out to tell the story. Well, Lionel is a married man who goes out to tell the story. Percival, right, is more the Duke of the Writings, I think. You know, the holy man, the passionate follower who gets to participate in this. But the Galahad character here is obviously the archdeacon, because this mass is held, Adrian is saved, everyone is saved, but the archdeacon, his body, does not leave the altar. The Duke and Lionel have just participated in this. They're left in the chapel, and the Duke comes up and says, "Will you tell us people, or shall I?" he asked Lionel. And Lionel answered with equal normality, "As you like. I will stay here if you will go." "Very well," the Duke said, and paused, looking at the body. Then he said, smiling at Lionel, "I suppose they will say he had a weak heart." The archdeacon has gone on and has died.
It's interesting, both the archdeacon and Kenneth die in this, but the people don't mourn them as those without hope. You know, they, especially after this Eucharist, they see the hope. I think even in when Prester John comes, they see Kenneth, and he is joyful. It sounds funny to say it is an ending of hope, but it really is. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it very much is. There is one great line throughout kind of the Grail stories throughout history. It's a question. The question is, whom does the Grail serve? And it's a riddle that gets asked over and over. And my understanding is the answer to the riddle is all those who seek it. And we see that in this book because we had all these people seeking the Grail, and it served them. But it served them what they wanted and what they deserved. And sometimes what they wanted and deserved was dark, and sometimes it was glorious beyond description. But the Grail served them. So whom does the Grail serve? All those who seek it.
So in the words of Archdeacon Julian Davenant, his mercy endureth forever.
And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.
I do want to follow up on this one and thank everybody for listening, but let's do it more of as a conversation because I don't have it recorded.
We're off the cuff here.
Well, we're also growing, and I do want it to be more of a conversation because with this Patreon thing, I don't want it to be salesy. I want it to be a community of people who like stories like we do. There's a chat thing in this Patreon that I think would be really fun to actually hear from people. So it is patreon.com/goodstoriespodcast. That is patreon.com/goodstoriespodcast. My EP said I had to say it 2 times. And we met him in the last episode.
Yeah, he's great.
But the idea is that we can put some extra content on there for people who want to hear it, who do like what we do here, like the Father Time thing. I think that would be a fun one. And if we can build that community, if there are things that people want to hear about or even join in sometimes on conversations, I think it'd be really good. That's one thing I wanted to mention. And the other one is that if you're willing, I really appreciate anytime people leave us reviews or ratings on Apple Podcasts. You scroll down to the bottom of the episode list. I had to figure that out myself. It's not obvious. So scroll all the way down in the episodes and you can give us hopefully a 5-star rating or leave us a review. And truly, I love them. They're such an encouragement when people send them in.
Yeah, I read every one that shows up and I always look every day, are there more? Because they are so encouraging. And do appreciate you leaving those.
Yeah, so only encouraging ones, please. To be clear. But however you're willing and able to reach out, we hope you do.